Hey, what's up? It's Cute What If this side. Today we will be seeing, what if overpowered Deku got Harem? Now before we move ahead with the fic, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future what ifs like this. Gather together and don't move. Izuocha instructed us. His tone betrays his agitation at the sudden appearance of the villains. 13. Go protect the students, he continued, his gaze fixed on the direction of the enemies. He swiftly donned his goggles. A determined expression settled on his features as he prepared to fight for the sake of the students. I reacted to the situation with caution, my senses on high alert, but beneath the surface, there was an undeniable sense of confidence. Perhaps too confident. I surveyed the villains and I noted that not one of them seemed to possess a spark. None of the crowd appeared to pose a significant threat. However, my attention was drawn to the creature with the bird-like features. Something about it seemed inherently dangerous, though I couldn't quite put my finger on it. 13. Eraserhead, and that unknown the teacher's schedule we got said that All Might was supposed to be here as well, the cloud-like person said before. Where is he? I went through the trouble of bringing this whole crowd. To the light blue-haired man remarked in a rather droll voice, his tone reminiscent of a disappointed child who had drawn a common item in a loot box game. All Might, the symbol of peace, and he isn't here. I wonder if he'll come if we kill some kids. He continued his little speech, unconcerned about the other people here. Straight flush I unleashed billowing flames at the man, a torrent of fire aimed directly at him. At that moment, I was unconcerned about whether he would survive or not. Something tells me that if I didn't go all out from the start, I would regret it. Boom! The deafening explosion echoed throughout USJ, its force ripping through the air with devastating power. Most of the villains near the epicenter were engulfed in flames and blasted into the air, akin to leaves caught in a shockwave. They were tossed aside by the immense force, like paper in a tempest, utterly overwhelmed and scattered in all directions by the unleashed power. Midoriya, that was excessive force. There was no need for you to do what you did. Izuocha-sensei's voice boomed, filled with concern and reprimand as he surveyed the devastation caused by the unleashed attack. The villains lay either dead from the fire or the fall, or heavily injured, many with bones protruding from their skin. The severity of the situation weighed heavily on everyone present. No, something isn't right. Let's get out of here, Ashida-san urgently exclaimed to the entire class and her two teachers, her face contorted with panic and horror as she sensed the impending danger. I observed the smoky center of the building and was surprised by what I saw. The bird-like creature, who seemed to have shielded the man, still stood, unscathed. Well, not entirely unharmed. Its body was covered in burns, but it was quickly recovering from them. The speed of its regeneration was far faster than even Itsuka's impressive ability. The creature's clearly not human. Did they mix a were-tiger's flesh into that thing? I thought to myself as I observed the creature now standing as if nothing had happened. This is going to be a pain in the ass. Achako, I need you to go find the rest of the teachers. Go get both All Might and Indriti. They'll be able to make short work of that thing, I instructed her without averting my gaze from the creature. Something told me that one wrong move and half the students and teachers here would end up as nothing more than a pile of ground meat. Sir Knight, surely you are not asking me to leave you here to fight that thing by yourself, she protested, clearly not amused by the idea of leaving me alone to face the creature. Her brows furrowed at the idea, a clear indication that leaving others to fight something went against her knight training and personal values. Do you really think that I'll let you get away, Namu? Go kill that man before ripping the heads off the students, he instructed the creature known as the Namu, which dashed towards our direction. This is bad. 3 of the kind. I summoned a shield to protect myself. Cracked despite my efforts, there were cracks caused by its powerful punch, but I managed to hold on. Go, my love, if you don't, we're doomed either way. I promise I will hold them off, I urged her, noticing the mix of emotions on her face, regret, despair, and fear, but finally, her expression transitioned to one of resolve. That's my girl. Okay, hang in there, Izuku. You still promised me a date, so you can't go dying on me, she exclaimed urgently as she rushed towards the exit, utilizing spells to get there as quickly as possible. As if I'll ever forget it. You won't get away. The cloud-like creature appeared to have warped in front of her, clearly intent on stopping her by any means necessary. I won't let you harm our students, 13 declared firmly before stretching her hands in front of her and opening a hatch from one of her fingers. It appeared she was attempting to use her black hole quirk to incapacitate the cloud creature. No, don't, Ashida-san shouted, her voice filled with urgency and concern, realizing the potential danger of using such a powerful quirk in close proximity. 13's attack seemed to have worked at first, but eventually, we watched in horror as the creature used its quirk to relocate the black hole from its body behind her, causing it to tear at her costume. However, just as the situation seemed dire, it abruptly stopped as Izuocha-sensei utilized his quirk, Erasure, to intervene and save 13 from further harm. Daikaken and Todoroki-kun, realizing the golden opportunity, dashed toward the creature, both keenly aware of the danger it posed, their determination evident, as they attempted to capture it and neutralize the threat it presented. Izuocha-sensei was suddenly grabbed by the villain who had landed near us, his quirk temporarily disabled as he was tossed to the side. Seizing this opportunity, the creature then used its powers to send the rest of my classmates somewhere else, their fate now uncertain. Thankfully, Jiro-san managed to save Achako from it by pushing her out of the way. Achako knows what to do, and that's to get help as soon as possible. She soon rushes out to the door and slashes it open with her sword. It all happened so fast, and I found myself still holding back the bird-like creature with my shield. I reinforced it as much as I could before unleashing a royal flush of pure kinetic energy towards its face, the powerful attack sending the creature flying backward. I then kicked the villain who grabbed Izuocha-sensei in the face, knocking him out. Haha ha, the light blue-haired man laughed maniacally, his amusement apparent as if this were all some kind of twisted entertainment for him. Impressive. But that won't be enough to beat Namu. It's a creation meant to kill All Might. You know there's no way a nobody like you would be able to defeat it. He taunted, his words dripping with arrogance and disdain. I responded with another straight flush aimed at his face, but just as he had said, a few moments later, the Namu blocked it again and stood by his side, ready to strike. I guess this requires a different approach. I slowly walked to the duo, readying my cards. The warp user appeared on the other side of the man, addressing him as Shigaraki Tamura. I wasn't able to harm her, but I was able to put 13 out of action. I was able to disperse the students, but one of them was able to run away. The voice of the warp user was solemn, conveying a sense of regret and concern. Shigaraki turned towards the creature, letting out a loud sigh. His actions became increasingly frantic as he started scratching his neck, the pace of his movements accelerating rapidly. Scratch, scratch, he continued to scratch, the sound echoing in the tense atmosphere. Scratch, 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 scratch. Kurajiryu Shigaraki exclaimed angrily, his scratching growing more frantic. If you weren't our warp gate out of here, I would have decayed you already. He continued to scratch furiously until he abruptly stopped. We, of course, won't win against dozens of pro heroes. It's game over, he said disappointingly, before turning back to Kurajiri. Let's go home, he added with a tone reminiscent of a child informing their friend that their favorite show had been cancelled. But first the villain gleefully smiled. Let's crush some of his pride as the symbol of peace. With those words, he dashed towards me, his hand outstretched. It might have seemed like a pathetic attempt if it weren't for the fact that I realized a little too late that the Namu was looming above me, about to crush me. Crash crack. It hurts. I'm sure I've broken most of my ribs just now, I thought, the pain searing through my body as Namu grabbed my head and repeatedly bashed it against the concrete floor, drawing with each brutal impact. 4 of a kind. I played the cards, utilizing the poison effect on the creature. It wouldn't take effect right away, but when it did, it would hit like a freight train. It wasn't my usual style, but since neither fire nor force was effective on it, I had no choice. Additionally, 2 pairs. I unleashed a surge of lightning that spread over a large area, stunning every creature around me with its powerful electrical charge. Crackle ping. What did you do? Shigaraki exclaimed, surprise and panic evident even on his covered face. The realization that he was unable to move seemed to instill fear in him, his eyes widening with alarm. I didn't want to give him time to recover, so I swiftly drew cards and played flush as ice began to gather around me, forming into an ice lance aimed directly at him. With a surge of magic, I pointed in his direction as I let loose the icy projectile, hoping to strike him before he could regain his composure. NOMU, Shigaraki shouted, his voice filled with urgency and command as he directed the creature to intervene. Namu was able to partially resist the lightning and swiftly moved to defend its master. TCH, it irritates me how much of a pain in the ass that creature is, but I'll just need to buy some time either for Ochako to return with Eindridi and All Might, or for the poison to take effect. I felt something approaching from behind, instinctively dodging it, despite hurting, before it could make contact, all the while keeping my focus on the creature before me. It was Shigaraki's hand. Of course, even if he was stunned, the creature named Kurajiri could still manipulate Shigaraki's hand through a warp quirk and activate his deadly ability all the same. I acted swiftly, grabbing Shigaraki's arm and applying enough force to break it, pulverizing part of his radial bones in the process. At the same time, I seized the opportunity to fire another dose of poison at Namu. ARRGGHH, yelled Shigaraki, his voice filled with agony and rage as he felt the excruciating pain from his broken arm. The Namu continued its relentless assault, and I found myself struggling to dodge its attacks, my broken ribs hindering my movements. With each passing moment, I could feel myself slowing down, the pain and exhaustion taking their toll. At this rate, I knew I was at risk of losing the battle and with it, my life. As the Namu's large fist came hurtling towards me and my body refused to respond, I braced myself for the impact. Just as it was about to strike, something swung at it with incredible speed, chopping off the arm of the Namu. My eyes widened in surprise as I looked towards the source, and there stood someone familiar. It was the vampire Itsuka and I had encountered several years ago. Hello, it's been a while, Izuku. Her voice was sweet and warm, filled with affection. I noticed she was still wearing the same school uniform she used to wear years ago, though it had been adjusted to fit her larger frame. Her face was flushed with a notable blush, and her eyes sparkled with heart symbols. However, my gaze couldn't help but be drawn to the rather unconventional markings on her thighs. Both her inner and back thighs had writing on them, saying Izuku's exclusive personal hole with an arrow pointing upwards. I decided to ignore that detail for now. I grunted, feeling the pain in my ribs intensify as I tried to readjust my posture. You're the vampire who was targeting Izuku, I continued, my voice strained but determined. Despite her sudden appearance and apparent act of assistance, I couldn't shake the suspicion that she might still pose a threat to Izuku. I glanced behind her and noticed Namu winding up for an attack aimed directly at her. Without hesitation, I lunged forward, tackling her out of harm's way just as the Namu's attack struck, hitting nothing but air and the ground beneath us. Izuku, are you gonna take my first here? I guess I don't mind, but I want you to call me baby girl. And I'll call you daddy, she said with a drool on her face, and starting to remove the ribbon from her uniform. My heart skipped a beat as I heard her words, feeling a mixture of shock and arousal wash over me. No, that's not, I stammered, my voice faltering as I attempted to formulate a response amidst the chaos of the moment. We need to focus on the situation, I interjected hastily, my words tinged with urgency as I tried to steer the conversation away from her suggestive remarks and back to the imminent danger that loomed before us. Okay, she answered in a cheery voice, much to my surprise. I had expected her to be upset by my rejection. As we stood up together, I cast a wary glance at the monstrous threat looming before us. But before engaging the creature directly, I decided to take preemptive action. Two pairs with a swift motion, I unleashed another wave of lightning, targeting both Shigaraki and Kurogiri to ensure they wouldn't be joining the fight anytime soon. Crackle ping. Then, without hesitation, I followed up with another poison attack aimed at the creature itself. The poison in its system now would fell even the deep elsewhere creatures. Both of us launched our barrage of attacks against the creature. With a swift motion, I unleashed a straight flush, conjuring flames that engulfed the creature once more. I knew that the time it would spend healing itself from the fire damage would provide us with the crucial window to continue our assault and allow the poison to fully take effect. With calculated precision, she launched into a relentless assault on the creature, hacking and slashing with her weapon. Not all of her strikes were intended to be fatal. Instead, she focused her attacks on the creature's joints, aiming to incapacitate it and hinder its movements. It became clear to me that she had discerned my plan to buy time with the fire attacks, and she was now executing her strategy to complement it perfectly. After a few minutes of relentless struggle, the effects of the poison began to manifest unmistakably. The creature's movements became sluggish and labored as if weighed down by an invisible force. With each passing moment, its once formidable agility dwindled until it resembled nothing more than a sloth in comparison to its former self. Finally, with a heavy thud, the creature collapsed onto the ground, its strength sapped and its life extinguished. The battle was won. The creature lay slain before us. I turned my gaze towards Shigaraki, only to find that he had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a palpable sense of frustration and anger in his wake. Before I could dwell on his cowardice for long, however, my attention was abruptly drawn to the sound of someone yelling, "Show me you're reacting swiftly." I summoned a royal flush and delivered a powerful punch to the blonde man's face, channeling my pent-up irritation and rage into the strike. Izuku, I heard Ochako's voice piercing through the chaos, and I turned to see her rushing down the stairs toward me. As she drew nearer, I couldn't help but notice the pallor of her complexion, which was far from its usual healthy hue. Instead, her skin appeared almost unnaturally white, bordering on a sickly shade of gray. Concern gnawed at my gut as I wondered if she had exhausted her magic in her haste to gather the faculty members. "Ochako, are you okay?" I exclaimed, my heart racing as she leaped into my arms. Her embrace was tight, almost suffocating, but I welcomed it nonetheless. Despite the chill of her hands, there was a warmth in her touch that sent a shiver down my spine, reassuring me in ways words couldn't express. Surveying the scene, I noticed that the enigmatic blonde vampire had vanished once again, leaving behind a lingering sense of uncertainty. Despite my confusion about her motives, I couldn't deny the impact of her timely intervention. If it weren't for her arrival, I shuddered to think of the dire straits I might have found myself in. It dawned on me then that amidst the chaos, I had never learned her name. With Ochako nestled in my arms in a classic princess carry, I made my way back to the others. Concern gnawed at me as I realized the absence of both All Might and Eindridi. It dawned on me that Ochako's depleted state might be attributed to her exhausting her magical reserves in the search for them. Gently cradling Ochako in my arms, I made my way to Recovery Girl's office, determined to ensure she received the rest and care she needed. As I entered the room, I couldn't shake off the worry that lingered in my mind. Yet, for now, I trusted that the faculty members would handle the aftermath of the ordeal while I focused on Ochako's well-being. As I sat vigilantly beside Ochako's bed, the quiet of the infirmary was interrupted by the sound of someone entering. My attention turned to the doorway, where I saw the towering figure of All Might, accompanied by a man clad in a tan overcoat. His sharp features and commanding presence exuded a sense of authority. "All Might," I greeted with a mixture of relief and gratitude, rising to my feet as they approached. "Greetings, young Midoriya." All Might boomed with his characteristic warmth. "This here is Tsukachi-kun, a detective in the police force," he explained, gesturing towards the man beside him. Tsukachi. It seemed their arrival was for separate reasons, but Tsukachi-san's business took precedence. "Good afternoon, Midoriya-kun. I'm Detective Tsukachi," he introduced himself with a respectful bow. I would like to discuss what happened earlier. There were multiple witnesses of you using what appeared to be excessive force to fight the villains, resulting in the deaths of many of them," he explained, his tone measured and professional. It was surprising perhaps he overlooked the laws regarding quirk usage, or maybe he possessed knowledge of the supernatural world, making it clear that accusing me of illegal quirk usage would be futile. I am not surprised that many perceived my actions as excessive, but I acted solely to protect the people. Following the encounter with that creature, it became abundantly clear to anyone present that it posed an extreme danger. If left unchecked, it could have resulted in the loss of countless lives, I explained, firmly defending my actions. Furthermore, it has come to my knowledge that this creature was specifically engineered to kill All Might, I disclosed, prompting looks of astonishment from both All Might and Detective Tsukachi. That may be the case, but we have people saying that the original target of your attack wasn't aimed at the creature, but at the man with light blue hair, he firmly stated, finding holes in my statement. Damn it, I thought. I understand the concern, but I assure you, my primary focus was always on neutralizing the imminent threat posed by the creature, I replied earnestly. Any action directed towards the man with light blue hair was purely defensive, as he presented an immediate danger to those around him. My goal was to eliminate any potential threats to the safety of the students and faculty present, I elaborated, hoping to clarify any misconceptions. Listen, kid, he sighed, his tone softening but resolute. I'm not discounting your bravery, and I get that the rules for quirked individuals and those with magic can be different. But if you're aiming to become a hero, you've got to tread more cautiously in these situations, he advised, his gaze a blend of empathy and seriousness. Okay, I promise to exercise more caution. I apologize if I seem disrespectful, I assured him, acknowledging my responsibility. No, kid, he reassured with a smile. You're all right. Just need to be more mindful about these things, otherwise we'll end up in a lose-lose situation. He elaborated, emphasizing the importance of caution. I understand. Thank you, I conveyed, offering a respectful bow in appreciation of his guidance. Well then, that's all I'll need for now. I'll make sure no dirt gets thrown your way for this one time since you did do it with good intentions. I'll be off now, he announced, heading towards the door with a sense of finality in his tone. Goodbye, Detective Tsukachi, I bid him farewell with a nod of gratitude. I turned to All Might, who seemed like he had something to say. Young Midoriya, he began with a serious tone, his eyes piercing as they searched for every detail. I want to know what's going on your mind as you did your deed, he pressed, his inquiry laced with the weight of responsibility. It's nothing much, really. I simply wanted to protect the people around me, I explained with sincerity. While there may have been personal emotions involved, the overwhelming drive was the instinct to safeguard those in danger. And what if the creature claimed your life instead, he asked, his tone earnest, seeking insight into my thought process. Perhaps. I don't want to die, honestly. But if it meant I'd be saving one more life, I don't mind paying the ultimate price, I conveyed, my voice resolute. Despite the potential consequences, Itsuka's disapproval, my mother's tears, Achako's heartache, I couldn't deny the instinct to protect, even at great personal cost. You, young man, have undoubtedly the heart of a true hero, exclaimed with a broad smile. I deem you worthy of inheriting my quirk. Wait, what do you mean inheriting your quirk? I asked All Might, my voice betraying a mix of confusion and disbelief. The notion seemed unfathomable, something beyond the bounds of my understanding of quirks. Is that even possible? My eyes searched his face for any hint of doubt or hesitation, but all I found was unwavering resolve, as if he had already made up his mind about the matter. Yes, All Might affirmed, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of legacy. With a sweeping gesture, he emphasized the significance of his words, as if tracing the lineage of One for All through the annals of time. Normally, it wouldn't be possible. But my quirk, One for All, is a sacred torch passed down in generations to protect the people. As he spoke, his hand seemed to trace an invisible thread connecting past and present, a tangible reminder of the responsibility that came with such a formidable power. I understand you already have a power, All Might continued, his gaze unwavering as he met my eyes with a sense of conviction. But what happened at Ust convinced me that no one but you is worthy of having it. His words hung in the air, each syllable laden with a gravity that echoed through the chamber. In that moment, I felt the weight of destiny pressing upon my shoulders, the mantle of heroism beckoning me forward. With a steady resolve, I met All Might's gaze, ready to accept the challenge that lay before me and prove myself worthy of the trust he had placed in me. As our conversation unfolded, All Might revealed the grim truth of his deteriorating condition, the reason behind his sudden decision to pass on One for All. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air, a somber reminder of the fleeting nature of heroism and the sacrifices that came with it. I couldn't help but feel a pang of concern for him, realizing that his time as the symbol of peace was slowly drawing to a close. His absence during the attack on USJ suddenly made sense. Called back to Tokyo to handle an emergency, he had entrusted the class to Izuocha and 13 since his time for the day was up. When I asked about Mr. Eindridi's whereabouts, All Might's response was curt, and to the point. He hadn't seen him anywhere throughout the day. The mystery surrounding Mr. Eindridi only deepened, leaving me with more questions than answers. In the end, after much deliberation, I accepted All Might's offer to inherit One for All. Despite the uncertainty of how the transfer would take place, I knew deep down that it was the right decision. Compared to ceremonial magic, the method of passing on One for All seemed far less disgusting. The next day, I hate Mondays, I grumbled inwardly as I dragged myself out of bed. The sky mirrored my mood, a dreary mix of dark blue and gray, with the sun barely peeking over the horizon due to the ungodly hour. The promise of a new week felt more like a burden than an opportunity, weighing heavily on my shoulders as I trudged through the morning routine. In the not-so-far distance, I could hear the sound of air rushing, blades slicing through the air with a distinct F-whip as they moved. It seemed Izuocha was putting in more practice with the sword lately. After the incident at USJ, it wasn't surprising. Our teachers were injured, one severely, and if I hadn't managed to stop that monster, which was almost the case, it could have torn through our classmates like a bullet through tissue paper. The memory of that day lingered like a shadow, a constant reminder of the dangers we faced as heroes in training. I wonder what that thing was, I mused, my thoughts drifting back to the chaotic events of that fateful day. The memory of battling the creature lingered in my mind like a lingering shadow, its monstrous form etched into my memory with vivid clarity. It was fiercer than anything I'd faced before, its relentless onslaught pushing me to the brink of my abilities. Even now, as I considered the creature's origins, a shiver ran down my spine. The claim that it was engineered to kill all might seem chillingly plausible. He's no pushover, even in his current state, but even he would have struggled against it, if he survived at all. As I sat on the sofa, lost in thought, Ashidasan descended from the girl's side of the dormitory. Despite the early hour, she radiated energy and vitality, embodying the quintessence of a morning person fully prepared to tackle whatever challenges the day might bring. With each step, her movements were fluid and graceful, displaying her natural agility and poise. Even in her uniform, she stood out like a splash of color against the morning haze. Her pink skin seemed to emit a soft glow in the early light, imparting a whimsical quality to the otherwise mundane surroundings. The vibrant hue of her hair, a vibrant shade of pink that matched her skin tone perfectly, cascaded down her shoulders in a playful cascade of curls. Her uniform hugged her figure snugly, accentuating her curves in all the right places. Yet, despite the neatness of her attire, there was an unmistakable vivacity to her presence that distinguished her from the rest. With a cheerful smile and a twinkle in her eye, she greeted me warmly, her enthusiasm infectious and uplifting. "Hey," Midoriya Ashidasan greeted cheerfully, her arms waving with an exuberance that made me wonder how much caffeine I'd need to keep up with her energy level. "Hey, Ashidasan," I replied with a smile, though my voice carried a hint of sleepiness. "You're certainly lively for this early in the morning," I remarked, admiring her enthusiasm. Despite my own sluggishness, her energy was contagious, infusing the room with a sense of vibrancy that was hard to resist. "Yeah, because today's the day we start learning about ceremonial magic," she exclaimed, practically bouncing with energy. "And to top it off, it's under the Sarah Rainier." Ishido continued to chatter excitedly about Sarah, and about the significance of ceremonial magic and its practitioners. Though I had little interest in the subject matter, it occurred to me that understanding their world might prove beneficial in the future, despite my reservations about their practices. "Is she really that remarkable?" I inquired, still not entirely convinced despite Ishido's excitement. Yet, I understood the value of knowledge, regardless of the subject matter. If Sarah was renowned in the realm of ceremonial magic, there must be something truly exceptional about her expertise. Perhaps, maybe, absolutely Sarah's like a legend in the ceremonial magic community, Ishido replied, her enthusiasm undimmed. Her techniques, her knowledge, her presence, it's all on a whole other level. You'll see what I mean once we start the class. As the door swung open, Izuku entered the room, her presence commanding attention. Fresh from her sword practice, she exuded a captivating allure, her glistening sweat catching the morning light and casting a radiant sparkle upon her. The interplay of light and shadow bestowed upon her a mystique, further enhancing her already enchanting aura. A flush graced her cheeks, a testament to the intensity of her training, accentuating the natural beauty of her features. Her eyes sparkled with determination, reflecting the fire of her resolve. Clad in a snug black shirt that accentuated her figure, she appeared effortlessly alluring, captivating my gaze and leaving me momentarily entranced by her presence. "Good morning, Izuku," I managed to greet her, though her presence momentarily left me in awe. "Good morning, Izuku," she greeted back with a wide smile. "You look lively today. I trust you were able to get a full night's sleep." Her genuine warmth washed over me, dispelling any lingering traces of awe and leaving me feeling grounded in her presence. It's not so much about the amount of sleep, but more about the timing. However, I've been up long enough to shake off any sleepiness, I explained to her. "I see. That's good to hear. I'll go ahead and get ready for school." "Could you wait for me for a bit?" she asked me, her voice carrying a hint of warmth. Her request filled me with a sense of companionship, and I nodded in agreement, grateful for the chance to spend a few moments in her company before the start of the day. Sure, I'll be right here, I replied, reaching for the remote to find something to watch while I waited for her. As I settled into the sofa, I couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment at the prospect of spending a few quiet moments in her company before the bustle of the day began. After flipping through the channels, I settled on one airing an old battle featuring All Might's clash against Toxic Chainsaw from around half a decade ago. As I watched the footage, a mix of nostalgia and admiration swept over me. All Might's towering form, bathed in sunlight, exuded an aura of invincibility as he faced off against the formidable villain. The screen crackled with energy as the two titans clashed, each blow echoing with the weight of their convictions. Despite the odds stacked against him, All Might fought with unwavering determination, embodying the essence of heroism in every punch, every defiant roar. It was moments like these that inspired countless aspiring heroes, myself included, to strive for greatness, to stand tall in the face of adversity, and to protect those in need with all our might. Hey there, Midoriya Izuku chirped, her voice cutting through the air as she leaned in close, effectively blocking my view of the screen. Is it true that you and the princess are a thing, she asked, her eyes glinting with mischief as she awaited my response. Her sudden appearance caught me off guard, and I couldn't help but feel a flush of embarrassment at the mention of Izuku. We simply hang out every now and then. It's purely platonic, I lied to her, hoping to deflect any further probing into my personal life. While Izuku and I may share a close bond, revealing the true nature of our relationship could lead to complications, especially considering her father's strict views on such matters. Granted, we haven't been doing a stellar job at that, but confirming it would be a disaster. As I spoke, I forced a casual tone, masking the turmoil of emotions churning within me. You're a terrible liar, Midori. But okay, I'll let it go. For now, she teased, her eyes twinkling with mischief, promising that this conversation wasn't quite over yet. Despite my attempt to deflect her inquiries, Ashido's keen intuition had pierced through my facade, leaving me feeling exposed and vulnerable in her playful scrutiny. I redirected the conversation towards ceremonial magic, and she eagerly launched into a detailed account. It turned out her mother had studied under Sarah, which explained her excitement. She'd grown up hearing tales of Sarah's skills. As she spoke, her eyes sparkled with a mix of reverence and anticipation, her words painting a vivid picture of Sarah's expertise and the wonders of ceremonial magic. After half an hour, Izuku finally returned, looking prepared to head to class with us. Without further ado, we set off, realizing that lingering any longer would only make us tardy. Hey, Izuku, would you mind teaching me how to wield a sword? I inquired, feeling the need to expand my combat skills beyond just relying on the cards, and one for all. Recent events have made it clear that I can't afford to be complacent with my abilities, especially when facing opponents who possess unique and formidable powers. The thought of adding another dimension to my fighting style intrigued me, and who better to learn from than someone as skilled and determined as Izuku? She looked at me with surprise at my request, then nodded her head. You are becoming more and more like a knight, she giggled at the thought before continuing. Sure, Izuku. I would be more than happy to teach you the sword. When would you like to start? Her smile was warm, reflecting her eagerness to impart her knowledge of swordsmanship onto me. Whenever's fine, so long as it's not too early, I told her, mindful of her busy schedule. While I appreciate her consideration, I know she has more classes than me, mostly scheduled after the regular UA lessons. So, I can't be too picky either. Hopefully, it won't be as early as this. Balancing our hero training with additional combat skills would require careful coordination, but I trusted Izuku to find a time that worked for both of us. Alright, would Thursday at 7 be okay? She inquired, gauging my reaction, perhaps hoping it was not too early for me. It is, but as I said, I can't be picky right now. While the prospect of an early start wasn't exactly appealing, I knew that committing to this training was essential for my growth as a hero. With a determined nod, I agreed to the arrangement, steeling myself for the early wake-up call that awaited me. Sure, that'll work. Perhaps it'll help me get the habit of waking up late out of my system, I replied with a chuckle. Despite my apprehension about the early start, I couldn't help but appreciate Izuku's optimism and her willingness to accommodate my schedule. With her guidance, together, I was confident that I could overcome any challenge, even if it meant sacrificing a few extra hours of sleep. As we descended the staircase leading to the basement, a sense of intrigue filled the air, heightened by the anticipation of what awaited us. The hallway seemed to stretch on endlessly, the dim lighting casting elongated shadows that danced eerily along the walls. Finally, we arrived at our destination, classroom DGN1. Stepping inside, I surveyed the room with a calm sense of assurance. The furring candlelight bathed the room in a soft, ethereal glow, creating an ambience that was both tranquil and inviting. The air carried the faint scent of incense, a subtle reminder of the mystical practices that would soon unfold. In the center of the room, the magic circle lay sprawled across the floor, its intricate patterns illuminated by a gentle, otherworldly light. It was a sight that held no fear or reverence for me, rather, it simply piqued my curiosity about the arcane arts I had yet to explore. Taking my seat among the others, I awaited the beginning of the lesson with quiet confidence. Hey, Izuku. How have you been doing? I heard a feminine voice behind me. I turned around to find Nana standing in the doorway. Not a class I'm thrilled to have, but I'll at least take it with you, she said as she sat down to my right. Ochako was on my left, and Ashidasen was to her left. With a smile, I turned to acknowledge Nana's presence, feeling a sense of relief at seeing another familiar face in this unfamiliar setting. Good to see you, Nana, I greeted warmly before turning to introduce her to Ochako and Ashidasen. Ochako, Ashidasen, this is Shimura Nana. She's my classmate in the evoker class, I explained, gesturing towards Nana with a nod of my head. Nana, this beauty here is Ochako Pendragon. And the other one's Ashido Minasan, I added, trying to inject a bit of humor into the introduction, though it seemed to earn me a playful pout from Ashidasen. Hey there, Nana greeted bluntly, her expression revealing her lack of enthusiasm. I winced inwardly, realizing the potential tension in the room. Nana has aversion to Ochako for being a princess, and adding to that the fact that Ashidasen was a ceremonial mage didn't help matters either. It is a pleasure to meet you. I have heard of the Shimura. Your father has been a great ally of the court, Ochako said in a formal voice, her tone measured and devoid of much emotion. What your father did that day is something we shall never forget. He has saved the lives of everyone in the city, she added. While her words are respectful, I can't help but feel there's thorn on her words. A tense silence hung in the air, thick with unspoken tension as Nana scoffed at Ochako's gesture, clearly unamused by the mention of her father. I shifted uncomfortably, unsure of the history between them and the implications of their strained exchange. It was clear that the atmosphere was on the verge of escalating into a confrontation, and I needed to defuse the situation before it spiraled out of control. Hey, Nana. How have you been these past week? I asked, swiftly interjecting to divert the conversation away from the minefield of their history. With an arm around her shoulder, I aimed to diffuse the tension and shift the focus to more neutral territory. However, it didn't escape Ochako's notice, earning me a questioning glance. It's fine, I guess. You still haven't been to our gym even though I'm looking forward to that, she told me, her tone softening. But it's been the usual routine: train, slay monsters, bash someone's head in, and train again, she continued with a wry smile, revealing the grit and determination that defined her as an evoker. The door swung open, drawing our collective attention as our teacher, Sarah Rainier, made her entrance. She was dressed in what appeared to be traditional Middle Eastern dancer attire, each movement accentuating the flowing fabrics and intricate designs of her costume. As my gaze inadvertently lingered, I couldn't help but notice, dang, her S's are big, a smirk forming on my lips. At least my eyes won't be suffering through this lesson, I mused to myself, finding a small silver lining in an otherwise potentially tedious class. Welcome, students, to my class, she greeted, her voice dripping with mystery and allure, drawing my attention. Here, you will learn the ancient secrets of ceremonial magic, she continued, her words tinged with a seductive undertone. I like the dress code, I muttered under my breath, unable to resist commenting on her attire. I know, right, Sarah is like totally old school. It's so cool, Ashidasen exclaimed in agreement. Before there were enchanters, before magic entered the human lines, the race of man and elsewhere mingled. This, then, is the birth of ceremonial magic, Sarah exclaimed, her voice filled with reverence for the ancient art she was about to impart. Whether it is a young shepherdess at a spring near Mycenae, or a young maid in Nazareth, gods and creatures from beyond have long lusted for humans. The beautiful young is irresistible to the denizens of elsewhere, she continued, her words carrying a weight of history and tradition, though they stirred discomfort in me. The practice is something I personally abhor, and also the reason why I'm not a fan of ceremonial mages. Wait, Nana, don't tell me, I asked Nana to my right, unable to hide my surprise. She doesn't strike me as someone without experience. Not me, kid. Ain't nothing much to do these days from where I'm from but get drunk, watch sheep, and have, she said with a chuckle, her tone revealing her lack of concern over the topic. Yeah, you don't strike me as a blushing, I said, unable to contain a smirk at the thought. I want to hear this, Ashidasen hushed us, eager to listen to Sarah's history lesson. Fine, I acquiesced, already feeling a twinge of boredom creeping in. Historically, interacting with the elsewhere tended to be a process not easy to control or repeat, but with the advent of the circles, we have grown to mastery of the process, Sarah continued, her voice carrying a hint of reverence for the advancements made in the field. And with 3.0, unfortunate accidents are practically a thing of the past. Ceremonial magic has come a long way, and is now among the most influential schools of magic, she continued. I wouldn't call it influential, I thought, unimpressed. The meager amount of magic they glean from monsters is barely enough to sustain their aging bodies. Most of them just use it to marry into a wealthy family, a practice that hardly seems worthy of praise. Now, each of us can reach out and almost touch the divine, to draw inspiration and power from the forces of elsewhere, to glory in the presence of magic and mastery, Sarah continued, her words tinged with reverence and excitement, as if she were describing a sacred ritual. You mean to whore yourself out to creatures from beyond for fun and profit, Nana whispered to me, her tone dry and sarcastic, revealing her disdain for ceremonial magic. That is a rather nice way of summarizing it, yeah, I replied to her in a whisper, unable to suppress a wry smile at her blunt assessment. As I was saying, she said with a forceful tone, Miss Shimura, if you would kindly pay attention. to touch the divine and draw power from it. This is the heart of ceremonial magic, Sarah continued, directing her attention firmly towards Nana, urging her to focus on the lesson at hand. And what's this circle thingy, I interjected, aiming to divert the conversation away from Nana. The 3.0 magic circle. It ensures that there are boundaries and allows humans some degree of control over the encounter, Sarah explained, her voice taking on a more informative tone. I don't see it. Here, let me demonstrate, she said. In the softly lit classroom, Sarah stood just outside the confines of her meticulously crafted magic circle. With a voice that resonated with both command and reverence, she began the incantation, each syllable carrying the weight of centuries-old knowledge. The air thrummed with anticipation, every breath tinged with the electric energy of the unknown. As Sarah's spell reached its zenith, the magic circle erupted in a dazzling display of ethereal light, casting intricate patterns across the room. A rift materialized within its bounds that brought forth the defiler. It emerged with a sinuous grace, its form a dance of shadows and flame, its eyes burning with an ancient hunger. A revolting creature straight out of a horror film, resembling a rejected design from Ripley's Darkest Nightmares. Its blue skin stretched taut over a grotesquely bulbous head. These abominations are notorious for abducting unsuspecting women who wander too far into elsewhere, subjecting them to unspeakable atrocities. If by some cruel twist of fate, the victim becomes pregnant, her torment only intensifies as she is forced to endure daily violations until giving birth. One after the other, then a grisly fate awaits as they are consumed by these vile creatures after getting skinned and chopped while they're conscious. A male isn't safe from these guys either, but the ones they catch would become dinner. Thus, they earn their fitting moniker, the Defilers. Disgusting creatures, I seethed internally. Though not formidable adversaries by any stretch, their vile nature always stirs a deep anger within me. Whenever I find myself overwhelmed, stressed out, I make it a personal mission to eradicate these abominations by the dozens. Their rapid reproduction ensures they remain a persistent threat, their vile existence perpetuated by their insatiable hunger for cruelty. Unfortunately, unless someone possesses the abilities of an enchanter, an evoker, or a particularly strong quirk, these creatures can easily overpower most people. I heard female heroes fall to them, at times. Ah, lovely. A fecking defiler. I hate defilers, Nana muttered, scowling at the creature. You and me both, Nana. You and me both, I echoed in agreement. What to even expect, gods and elven lords don't need to show up for some glorified cam whores, she said with a sharp undertone, causing Ashidasan to flinch. The creatures that do show up tend to be the less savory inhabitants of elsewhere, she continued, her words laced with disdain for the dark side of ceremonial magic. Yes, Madam Sarah, we meet again. And I can smell the delicious scent of SSSS. What performance are they putting on for me today? Are the too young on lesbian? The disgusting creature hissed, and slithers its tongue, its voice dripping with vile intent as it addressed Sarah. Irritating, I thought to myself, struggling to contain my frustration. There was no reason to escalate the situation by unleashing a fire in such a confined space. I like the little brown-haired Oneshess unsullied. What I wouldn't give for just an hour or two with her. Alone, it hissed, its gaze fixed on Ochako with a predatory hunger. The innocent Unes task the SS sweetest. Especially their SS screams as they break. Delicious SS screams, it pointed at her, its hips moving in disgusting motion. Keep your vile desires to yourself, or I'll reduce you to nothing but ashes, I warned, my tone firm and laced with determination. I've just got enough of this pest. I materialized a straight flush fire on the palm of my hands. Mr. Midoriya, please refrain from disrupting the ritual, Sarah warned, her voice tinged with urgency, but my patience was wearing thin, and I couldn't care less about protocol at that moment. You call this a divine ritual, I interjected, my irritation evident in my tone as I challenged her choice of words. I aim at the defiler, ready to vaporize it. I call it a barbecue party. As if a surge of survival instinct had suddenly kicked in, the creature vanished from the circle, retreating back to whence it came. That disgusting thing is lucky it had a magical circle surrounding it, or I would have unleashed my fury upon it as well. I've seen firsthand what those creatures do to people they catch, Nana remarked, her tone tinged with anger and disgust. Be that as it may, it was safely contained, Sarah acknowledged, her tone firm. Mr. Midoriya, as a reward for your intervention, you can write me a paper on the historical significance of magic circles. Due next Monday. I expect no less than 10 pages, she instructed with a hint of disapproval in her voice. Are you all right, Ochako? I inquired, concerned as the creature seemed to have focused on her. I am fine, thank you for your concern, my knight, Ochako replied, her voice steady despite the unsettling encounter. As I was saying, the magic circle provides a limited portal between elsewhere and our world. Through it, we can summon creatures from the beyond and engage with them. Sarah continued the lesson, her voice carrying a mix of fascination. So you people are magical camwars. The creatures come here and then pay with magic or gems for a show, Nana said, her expression sour as she leveled a critical gaze at the teacher. That is unhelpfully harsh, Miss Shimura. We merely provide an acceptable way for the creatures of elsewhere to engage with humans, for mutual benefit, Sarah replied calmly, her tone measured despite Nana's accusation. Female, human. I interjected, unable to contain my disbelief at the absurdity of the situation. Well, it works better with S. There's something about the purity of their aura that enhances the summoning process. And, of course, they're willing to pay more for the S, Sarah explained, her tone matter-of-fact. So they pay you magic for you to be able to use it. So, what you guys are normies, basically, I remarked to Sarah, pointing out the mundane nature of their transactions. That is not a polite term, Midoriya. And as ceremonial magicians, we are formally considered mages, merely born without a spark. Do you not see its importance? Ceremonial magic allows for true democratization of magic, she explained, emphasizing the significance of their practice. Though since you're already an evoker, you have no need for the ritual. And as a man who is an A, nobody would pay for you. Your lessons with me will focus more on the theory and history underpinning ceremonial magic. Some mental practices, that sort of thing. Apart from that, this course is primarily graded on coursework. You'll be working in groups of 2. Let me see, Shimura should be paired up with. Ah yes, Ashido, she announced, her tone betraying a hint of calculation. Whatever machinations were unfolding in her ceremonial magic-wired mind, it was evident that she had a plan, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I might not be fond of it. Sounds like we're working together, Ochako. I turned to my left to tell her. Whatever it is Sarah's planning, I have zero hesitation that Ochako and I can overcome it. Nana looked pissed though, her fists were clenched, and if I didn't know any better, I'd think she was about to throw a punch. But she's not. She's still incredibly pissed though. What surprised me was Ashidasan is fighting back with the insults. Here is your first assignment, to be completed by next Monday. Kindly refrain from opening the envelope until you are ready to start the task, she instructed, handing out the assignments. Ochako held on to ours, while Ashidasan took charge of theirs. How do you want to approach this, Ochako? I inquired, deferring to her since she had more classes to manage. Despite being excused from heroics classes due to the USJ incident, we were still expected to continue with our other coursework according to the principal. I think it would be better if we finish it as soon as possible, she suggested. Do you want to go to your room now so we can work on it, she asked, seeming unaware of the All Might merchandise in my room. How about the room Midnight Sensei is letting me use? I've had a look at it, and it's quite good. Pretty clean, enough chairs, and a desk in case we need it, I suggested, keen to keep her away from my actual dorm room. Are you hiding something there? Perhaps, she teased with a little smirk on her face. It's good to know that the defiler didn't affect her. She relented and said, okay, let's use that. But I want to see your room soon, she added with a playful glint in her eyes. All right, maybe later, I replied, the words laced with a hint of mischief as I returned her playful smirk. A playful banter between us, a gentle dance of words, with promises of shared moments yet to come. Is this your workplace? Ochako inquired, her gaze meandering around the pub, absorbing the ambience and surroundings. That's correct. Midnight Sensei had a connection with my mom way back, so she's letting me use one of the rooms for free, I informed her, casting a quick glance around the pub to see if Midnight Sensei was present. Even though she granted me permission to use the room, I still felt it necessary to ensure she was aware of our presence, so long as I also help here with things. Evoker things. I've mentioned this before, but I imagine running a public house in this world is no easier than in elsewhere. However, having an evoker bouncer might be a tad overkill, Ochako remarked, her tone reflecting a mix of curiosity and skepticism. A Somyon I used to know has a saying that overkill is something only the other guy complains about. But he used to be in special forces, so that probably has something to do with it, I told her, recalling the saying with a hint of nostalgia. Hey, Izuku. I was going to order some O. Greetings, princess. May you ever be safe in my home. Midnight Sensei suddenly appeared, her unexpected arrival catching me off guard. Good morning, Midnight Sensei, this is Ochako. I guess you two already knew each other, I asked, feeling a mix of surprise and curiosity about their connection. Ochako seemed uneasy, her gaze avoiding Midnight Sensei, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to their relationship than met the eye. Two have met her before. I think it was a very long time ago, Ochako replied hesitantly, her tone suggesting there might be more to the story. I decided not to push further, respecting her privacy, and understanding that she might not be ready to share everything just yet. I eyed Midnight Sensei, curious about her response. I do travel the paths and elsewhere, Izuku, and I've been to the court a few times. That's all, she explained. Her words were cryptic, but I trusted her. After all, with those glowing eyes, she couldn't tell a lie. Deciding to let it go for now, I turned my attention back to Ochako. Wanna head up to my room, I proposed, gesturing towards the staircase. It's just upstairs, last door on the left. That will be fine, I expect. Farewell, Lady Sorceress. Ochako bid Midnight Sensei farewell with a polite nod. After you, my lady, I said, gesturing for Ochako to lead the way upstairs. Be very careful, Izuku. You're swimming in deep waters right now, Midnight Sensei cautioned me, her tone laced with concern and seriousness I haven't heard from her before. Her gaze lingered on the stairs where Ochako had just been, her narrowed eyes hinting at hidden depths of worry. No worries, I swim like a fish, I reassured her, though a fur of doubt danced in my mind. Do I really know what I'm doing? Yeah, there's nothing to worry about. I went upstairs to where my room was. While I hadn't spent a night in here before, I had made sure it was presentable, at the very least, for occasions such as this. As the morning light filtered through the curtains, painting golden hues across the floor, I stood at the threshold of the room. With a gentle push, the door swung open, revealing a haven untouched by the chaos of the outside world. Stepping inside, I was greeted by the soft warmth of the morning sun, casting long shadows that danced upon the walls. The bed, with its plump pillows and neatly tucked sheets, awaited its weary occupant, promising dreams woven from the fabric of peace. The chair, with its plush cushion and gentle curve, invited reflection, a sanctuary for introspection amidst the chaos of the world outside. And the table, with its polished surface and steady legs, held the promise of productivity, a platform for ideas to take flight under the gentle tap of fingertips on keys. So, this is your room. Would you believe it's the first time I've been in a stranger's bedroom? Ochako remarked, her eyes darting around the room, as if trying to memorize each detail. Hey, I'm no stranger, I replied, feigning offense. Of course not, dear knight. I misspoke, please forgive me, she replied graciously. Forgiven, of course, I assured her with a warm smile. So, should we open this envelope? She asked hesitantly, her fingers grasping the envelope with a hint of tension. You seem nervous about this, I observed, noting the tension in her actions. It felt strange, considering it was just an assignment. I've done some overdue research on ceremonial magic. I don't expect my father knows what I've been enrolled in, she confided in me. Were there no ceremonial mages at the court? I inquired, intrigued by her upbringing. Yes, for 3 simple reasons. First, ceremonial magic is designed to let people without the spark harness magic. Since most of our people have some degree of magical talent, it was never considered, she explains, her tone informative, as if guiding a novice through the intricacies of magic. I guess that makes sense, I replied, understanding her reasoning. Secondly, their magical circle works by joining elsewhere, and the old world with an impermeable portal. It would not work from inside elsewhere itself, she continued, her explanation shedding light on the technicalities of ceremonial magic's circle. I see, is all I could mutter. Despite my years as a mage, my expertise lies more in combat and practical applications. And finally, the idea of whoring ourselves out to creatures like that defiler goes against everything we believe in. We have witnessed firsthand the atrocities they commit against our people. If we encounter them, our duty is to eliminate them, she declared, her voice filled with righteous indignation. Yeah, the evokers I've met are never impressed by their practices. Can't say I disagree, I remarked to Ochako, sharing her sentiments. Now you see my trepidation. Gods alone know what her coursework will be like, she confided, her palms pressed against her forehead, as she imagined the daunting tasks ahead. Can't be that bad, I reassured her, hoping to alleviate some of her worries. Very well. I shall break the seal now, she said, her fingers hovering over the envelope, awaiting my assent before proceeding. Go ahead, I nodded, giving her the go-ahead to open the envelope. Ceremonial magic, at its heart, is about intimacy and building connections. Today's exercise you will each share an intimate moment that you have never disclosed to another person. She reads aloud from the paper, her voice carrying a hint of uncertainty and discomfort. That doesn't seem so bad. Though I can't imagine that'll go smoothly for Nana and Ashidasan, I remarked to Ochako, anticipating potential challenges for our classmates. There's more, she said, her tone dropping slightly. To better bring your connection, today's dress code is underwear only. She finished reading it, a hint of disbelief evident in her voice. Wait, what? I said, incredulous. The absurdity of the instruction left me momentarily speechless. That sounds ridiculous, I added, struggling to comprehend the reasoning behind such a requirement. Here, take a look, Ochako said, passing me the paper with a concerned expression. Wait, this is bullshit. How's she going to know if we just ignored this? I expressed my disbelief. She will not know. But I will, Ochako sighed, acknowledging the dilemma we faced. And I asked, my gaze fixed on her, uncertain of her intentions. Duty is heavier than a mountain, death is lighter than a feather, Ochako quoted, her voice carrying a sense of gravity and determination. The words resonated with a sense of familiarity, though I couldn't quite pinpoint their origin. Deep. Is it a court saying? I inquired, curious about the source of the quote. Hardly, she said with a light chuckle. I read it in a book a traveler left at court. But it fits. To be of royal is to be bound by duty, she told me. I have a feeling that while that saying would allow me to see her in her underwear right now, it's a sentiment that I'll come to dislike in the near future, I mused, sensing an impending unease. Are you sure? I asked her, searching for confirmation in her eyes. To undress in front of a man not my husband is embarrassing. But it shall pass. To lie or deflect that is a stain on my honor. And that will never be gone, she declared, her resolve firm as she weighed her principles against the uncomfortable situation. I'm sorry, I offered softly, acknowledging the discomfort she was experiencing in this unexpected circumstance. Please, do not worry, Ochako comforted me with a gentle smile. Being a princess entails occasional discomforts. Compared to the alternative, being bound to an old fool and an unwanted engagement, This is a mere minor inconvenience. And, really, it is not your fault at all. Hopefully, not even in the top 10, I replied, trying to inject a bit of levity into the situation. Ahaha, she chuckled, a welcome sign of levity. Yes, indeed. I'm thankful it's you, Izuku. I dread facing this with a stranger or someone I didn't care for, she admitted with a genuine smile. Look at it this way, it's not any worse than what you'd wear on a beach, I offered, aiming to lighten the mood and ease any remaining discomfort she might feel. I would not go to the beach, nor do I know how to swim. Things live in the waters of elsewhere that you would really not want to meet. But I fear we are stalling, she admitted, acknowledging her discomfort but urging us to proceed with the task at hand. Right. I forgot she barely lived on this side. If you're sure, I confirmed with her once more, wanting to ensure she was fully prepared for what was to come. Yes, I am, she told me as she started undressing in front of me, beginning with her shirt. Her movements were fluid, yet devoid of being lewd, each action deliberate and precise. I couldn't deny the rush of excitement coursing through me as I observed her. My eyes are up here, Izuku, she teased, a playful smirk gracing her lips as she caught me stealing a glance. I'm sorry. You look beautiful though, I told her sincerely, offering a compliment to ease any lingering discomfort. You are not making this easier, Izuku, she murmured, her cheeks now flushed a deeper shade of crimson. Sorry. Look, I'll undress too, if that makes it easier, I offered, beginning to shed my own garments. Do not think it does. I have seen men without their shirts before, of course. Many of the knights train buried. And there's that incident during battle trials, of course. But this feels different, she confessed, her gaze lingering on me as I removed my clothes. Think of it as getting into cold water. Sometimes it's best to just take the plunge rather than standing there halfway, I advised her, offering a metaphorical push to ease her discomfort. Your people have an unhealthy fascination with water, she observed, her gaze glued to below my belt as I removed my pants. My eyes are up here, Achako, I teased, returning the playful banter. I'm sorry. It is all of this is strange, she admitted, attempting to avert her gaze from my lower half. Don't worry, you can look all you want. I was just teasing you. See, it's not so bad, I reassured her with a gentle smile. You don't appear to be bothered by this. Why, she inquired, noting the lack of flush on my cheeks. Well, I'm hardly blushing, I stated matter-of-factly, which seemed to surprise her. A fleeting sadness flashed across her eyes for a moment as she looked away. Sorry, that came out way wrong. But my point is that this isn't my first time. You know, getting undressed with a girl, I explained, attempting to soften the bluntness of my previous statement. Did you ever know anything else, she asked. Normally, it would be rude to ask someone about their relationship history, but I'm the one who brought it up. Plus, considering her limited time on this side, I can't blame her curiosity, regardless of whether it's the case or not. I've had a couple of steady girlfriends. We had. Not really a big deal here, I told her, trying to convey a sense of nonchalance. And now, she inquired, her tone laced with curiosity. Well, there's one. The girl of my dreams, I began, meeting Achako's gaze directly. Izuku cannot. Achako's voice faltered, her eyes betraying a hint of sadness as she realized who I was referring to. Anyway, let's proceed with the homework, shall we? I suggested, deciding to steer the conversation away from the sensitive topic. Close your eyes and think of the court, Achako. You can do this, she said as she started removing her skirt and tights. No rush, I reassured her, wanting to alleviate any pressure she might be feeling. There, not so bad. It is fine. Fine, she repeated, her voice a mantra to dispel her anxiety. You look great, I complimented her. And just to be clear, anyone who dared to disagree would face the wrath of my fiery royal flush. I assume you tell that to all half-naked girls you find yourself with, right? She asked, raising a skeptical brow. Usually, yes. Doesn't make it untrue. You look stunning, I remarked, internally celebrating the sight before me. I sat on the bed while she sat on the chair as we did this. Thank you. I think, she said, a little unsure how to feel about that. Either way, we have gotten the hard part over. Hopefully, she told me, her tone tinged with a mix of relief and uncertainty. Now the next question was something we've never told anyone else, I said to her, pondering over what it could possibly be I could share to her. Who goes first, you or me? She asked, the question lingering in the air as we both hesitated, unsure of where to begin. You. I think I'm still trying to work out what to say, I admitted to her, my words tinged with a hint of uncertainty as I grappled with the weight of revealing something I had kept hidden for so long. Me too. Sitting here, almost naked, with a man I had only gotten to know so recently. About to describe a moment I've never told anyone, she said, her voice trailing off as she contemplated the significance of what she was about to share. Well, they did want intimacy. It could be worse, I guess, I offered, trying to inject a bit of levity into the tense moment. Indeed. But this is after all only the first study session. I fear worse is all too likely, she remarked with a hint of resignation, anticipating more challenging tasks ahead. This time at least, it should be simple. Any idea what you want to talk about? I inquired, curious about her thoughts on the matter. Yes, I think so. Here we go. The last time I ever cried was when I was 8. A princess of the does not cry. But that night my mother died. I curled up in my bed and cried for hours, she began, her voice carrying the weight of a heavy memory. I'm sorry, I tell her. Sympathy flooded through me. I couldn't fathom losing my own mother. The next day, I put on my makeup, straightened my shoulders, and went back out. A princess must always set an example. I never told anyone about that night, before now, she continued, her voice carrying a mix of vulnerability and resolve. What happened? I asked, my curiosity piqued by the revelation of such a personal moment from Ochako's past. A dragon. There are many things of power in elsewhere, but short of an angry god, there are a few more terrible than a dragon. It had destroyed one of the glades of the court, and my father called for a hunt for it, she explained, her voice carrying the weight of the memory. A glade, a stable piece of chaos in elsewhere. Most are constructed by powers and gods over centuries for the inhabitants there to dwell in. Unless you opt for a nomadic lifestyle, living within one is essentially the only way to permanently settle in elsewhere. A hun? I inquired, unfamiliar with the term, given my limited encounters with sentient inhabitants of elsewhere, let alone someone from Camelot, aside from Ochako. Also known as the Wild Hunt. We call upon our allies, assemble a band, and ride the paths. The court's hunt is one of the powers that safeguard elsewhere itself. Without it, human life could not endure there, she elucidated. And did they find a dragon? I inquired, returning to the sequence of events. No, it was old and cunning. While the hunt searched for it, it snuck back to the court itself. My mother had remained behind to guard the civilians, she explained, her voice tinged with a mix of sorrow and reverence for her mother's sacrifice. I think I see, I muttered, trying to process the weight of her words. A lone evoker was with them. He had been too late to join the hunt, and was lounging around drinking, waiting for them to return. When the dragon came, he met it outside Camelot. And stopped it, she recounted, as I quickly pieced together the information. Wait, what the? For half an hour, dragon flame met evoker lightning. I have never seen pure magic force unleashed like that before or since, and I live at a court visited by gods and powers on a regular basis, she recounted, her voice carrying the weight of that extraordinary encounter. My mother was an enchanter of the council, and a lady of the Fae, almost as strong as my father. While the evoker bought her time, she built defenses around the city, layer upon layer of shields to protect the innocent, she continued, her tone reflecting both admiration and sorrow for her mother's valiant efforts. I'm taken aback by the revelations she's sharing with me. Given what I've learned, it's also becoming clearer why Nana harbors such resentment towards the court. In the end, the dragon won. I do not know what changed, but one moment they were battling, next moment, flame engulfed him. And then me mother I watched from inside the shields as she turned to ash before me, she said, her voice heavy with the weight of grief as she recounted the final moments of her mother. You do not need to continue if you don't want to, I said to her, offering comfort in the form of a hug, but she declined, preferring to finish the story. I never told anyone about this. In some ways, it feels like it is lifting a weight from my heart, she confessed, her voice quivering but holding strong. What happened next? I inquired gently, giving her space to continue if she wished. The dragon directed its fire at the shields. I could feel them weakening. I do not know if the hunt would have returned in time. All I remember was standing there, staring at it as the shields my mother had built failed around us piece by piece, knowing she'd failed. And then Ochako's voice wavered as she recounted the events, her words heavy with the weight of the memories. And then I prompted, urging her to continue her narrative. But still, what do you mean its head exploded? I asked her, utterly flabbergasted by her statement. There was a woman, dragging the biggest rifle I have ever seen. You could feel the enchantments on it, and the powerful magic radiating from the magazines she carried. Normal bullets do nothing to a dragon, but whatever that gun was, it was not normal, she recounted to me. Wait, that woman Midnight Sensei, I exclaimed in sudden recognition. She saved me. She saved all of us. But if she had been an hour earlier, my mother would still be with me, she lamented as she's nearing the end of her story. You sound as if you think she did it on purpose, I noted, sensing the undercurrent of suspicion in her tone. I think nobody ever fully relaxes around sorcerers. Their power is too fickle, and far too often their gifts come with sharp edges, she reflected, revealing the wariness of those wielding their strange powers. And since then, your father raised you alone? I inquired sympathetically, recognizing the challenges of being raised by a single parent, a situation I could empathize with. No, it is mostly tutors who have raised me, truth be told. My father blamed himself, blamed the court, blamed me for surviving, I think. Something vital in him died with my mother, and he turned all his energy into the politics of the court, she revealed, her tone carrying sorrow and resignation. I honestly don't know what to say. She has been through so much, but to think that her father would ever blame her for her mother's death. I'm so sorry, Ochako, I murmured softly, my heart heavy with empathy for her pain. After all she had endured, it seemed like the only appropriate response. It is the nature of things, and cannot be changed. Sano, I have bared my skin, and bared my soul. Of the two, I think the story may have been harder. But I am glad I told it, Ochako concluded, her voice carrying a sense of closure and relief. I guess it means it's my turn, I told her. So, what tale do you want to tell? How you have lost your ID? She asked, clearly trying to lighten up the mood. I'd like to do the same, but at the same time, I felt like doing so would be an insult to her story. That's hardly a big deal. Some fumbling around in the dark, it was confusing, and scary, and fun. Later it got less confusing, and more fun, I said, reminiscing about my first time with Izuku. But no, I think your story probably deserves something more, I told her, acknowledging the depth and gravity of her experience. I want to tell the story of how I found my magic. I've never told anyone this before, I confessed to her, feeling a sense of vulnerability in sharing this deeply personal experience. It happened years ago. I hung out with a friend of mine, and since it was late, I walked her to her house to make sure she was safe. After dropping her off, I started walking back home. I was a big guy, even then, and thought I had what I thought to be super strength, so I wasn't particularly wary. But I noticed this weird old man following me. He stank of booze and sleeping rough, I recounted to her, the memories of that night still vivid in my mind. Ochako simply listened. There are a lot of heroes who help with relief efforts, so there aren't a lot of them from the neighborhood where I'm from. But even then, I understand that some people simply lose their footing. I was going to give him some cash to get a meal, just leaving me with enough to get back home, I continued. But when he came close I realized he was muttering. And he was saying my name. Again and again, I revealed to her, the eerie realization still sending shivers down my spine. What did he say? Ochako inquired, her curiosity piqued. Nonsense. Or at least I thought it was nonsense. No, I'm not so sure, I told her. He was muttering about the of Arthur. That's you, I think. He said the end must never meet the beginning. That the sword that was lost must never be found. I relayed to her, the memory still vivid in my mind. Excalibur, she exclaimed, recognizing one of its names, her eyes widening with realization. Then he started ranting about them. He said they were coming. That gods and men would die. That the world would end, in ice or fire. That before that happened, I needed to die, and they had finally found me, I recounted to her. Then he pulled out a knife and charged me. I remember the knife. It wasn't a glowing sword, not carved with runes. It was just a normal kitchen knife, about as long as my forearm. Pointed to the front, I continued. I don't think he was some powerful cultist or assassin. I think he was just some poor dude whose mind broke and left the door open for something else to come through. As he rushed me, it felt like time slowed down around me. The world dimmed, and I saw cards, I explained to Ochako, trying to make sense of the surreal experience. That would be how you visualized your power, I assume, she inquired, her curiosity piqued by my description. Yeah, I play this weird poker hybrid. Different hands correspond to different gems. But I didn't know it back then, I confessed, scratching my head, reflecting on my past ignorance of my own abilities. Wait, you're saying that you didn't have an idea about your abilities and the gems beforehand, she asked, shocked at what I said. Though I'm not sure why that is. Wait, you're saying that you didn't have an idea about your abilities and the gems beforehand, she asked, her voice tinged with genuine surprise. It was clear that my revelation had taken her aback, though the reason for her astonishment remained elusive to me. As her eyes searched mine for answers, I couldn't help but wonder what had sparked such a reaction. Yeah, that's right. If I hadn't met a friend back then, I wouldn't have known about it till now, I told her, my tone casual as I recounted the events that had led to my discovery of my abilities. She then looked me straight in the eye, her searching for every nook and cranny, and asked, Izuku, who are your parents? Her question caught me off guard, the intensity of her gaze unsettling me. You don't know. Not really. My mom is just a mom. She works as a vet at a local animal clinic. She has no magic, she's a complete normie, I told her, my voice tinged with uncertainty as I recounted what little I knew about my mother. Despite her ordinary profession and lack of magical abilities, she had always been a source of unwavering support and love in my life. Yet, the absence of any information about my father remained a glaring void, a question mark that lingered at the edges of my consciousness, taunting me with its elusive nature. And your father? Ochako asked, her curiosity palpable as she awaited my response. The mention of my father sent a shiver down my spine, stirring memories of unanswered questions and unresolved mysteries. For as long as I could remember, his identity had remained a closely guarded secret, a puzzle that I had yet to unravel. With a heavy heart, I shook my head, unable to provide any more insight into the enigma of my paternal lineage. I don't know. He left after I was conceived. He, my mom, and Midnight Sensei spent a month on some farm in Shirakawago, I replied, my voice steady, though tinged with a hint of uncertainty. Would have been nice to have some answers though. I still can't get that black sun thing out of my head. The sorceress again. What did I say about gifts with sharp edges? Ochako said, her tone sharp. It was clear that her disdain for sorceresses ran deep, her words dripping with frustration and distrust. You think she knows more about this than she lets on? I asked, curiosity lacing my tone as I considered the possibility. Possible. Sorceresses have an uncanny knack for finding the things they need for whatever they wish to do, she answered, her voice tinged with a hint of wariness. Like an eldritch rifle, I offered, providing an example to illustrate the point. Yes, so it is possible. In any case, we will have a grand challenge if we foolishly think we shall be able to extract information out of a sorceress, she told me, her voice tinged with a note of skepticism. But it still leaves your father's identity a mystery, she mused, assuming a thoughtful pose for a moment before continuing. Demigods differ by the strength of the god that sired them. What do you mean gods are gods, right? I said. There shouldn't be any reason for the discrepancy of power between them. All gods are powers, but some are more. Zeus, Jupiter and Atlas, Odin and Thor, Amaterasu, the Horned Lord. The gods mortals still remember. Others are more secretive. The Tuatha De Danann are powerful, but stay aloof from humans most of the time, she explained, her voice carrying a tone of knowledge and wisdom. I find it fascinating that we're sitting here in our underwear discussing forgotten gods, I remarked, a wry grin tugging at the corners of my lips as I noted the irony of our conversation. Thank you, Izuku. I had completely forgotten, she said, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Her eyes narrow as she looks at me. I may have done goofed. Until now. Yes, until now, she said. You're gorgeous when you blush, did you know that? I remarked, a playful smile tugging at the corners of my lips as I attempted to lighten the mood. 2. This is a terrible idea, Izuku. My father will find me a consort, and while you may be the bastard of a god, you are hardly the political match he needs to seal the court, she said with a sad tone mixed with fear. Her words carried apprehension, a fear of the consequences of allowing herself to fall even deeper into this forbidden affection. You're jumping quite far ahead, I reassured her gently, sensing her apprehension and the need to address her fears. And you are fishing around for my heartstrings, getting uncomfortably close, she replied, her voice tinged with a mixture of vulnerability and defensiveness as she struggled to maintain her composure. Do I at least get it as our 4th date, after all, I told her, trying to inject a note of lightness into the tense atmosphere. This isn't a date. It's homework, she retorted, her tone firm as she attempted to maintain boundaries amidst the swirling emotions between us. You're in this world, now. And this is what we call a study date, I replied with a hint of playfulness. If you say so, she said, her tone suggesting a mixture of resignation and amusement. It seemed she was still unconvinced, but willing to humor me for the sake of keeping the peace. Come on, you may like it, I urged, my tone gentle as I attempted to convince her to take a chance on the idea of sharing it with me. That is exactly what I am afraid of. When I am done here, I will go back to the court to marry some inbred fool. Doing so will not be any easier if my heart already belongs to another, she confessed, her voice carrying internal conflict and the harsh realities of her royal duties. We could elope, I suggested to her, my voice tinged with a hint of desperation as I floated the idea, knowing it was a reckless proposition, but feeling compelled to offer it as a potential solution to our dilemma. Duty is heavier than a mountain, death is lighter than a feather. Always remember that, she said, with a sigh. How about we try for another date? Our last one got cancelled because you were still recovering, so what do you say we go on Friday? I suggested, hoping to redirect our conversation towards a more lighthearted topic and provide a welcome distraction from the weighty issues we had been discussing. Izuku, yes. My heart wants to, though my head knows it for a bad idea, she assented, her voice laced with uncertainty and a hint of longing. Anyway, it is probably time for us to get dressed back, she continued. Too bad, I replied with a playful smirk, acknowledging the fleeting moment of intimacy before returning to the present reality. As we dressed from our underwear, there was an unspoken intimacy that hung in the air, a gentle closeness that felt both familiar and reassuring. Each garment we slipped into seemed to carry with it a quiet acknowledgement of the trust we had shared, the unspoken secrets and vulnerabilities laid bare in the safety of our bond. Getting dressed together feels almost as weird as taking it off was, she started, her tone lightening as she attempted to diffuse the tension with a touch of humor. Why are you staring at me? She asked, her cheeks flushing slightly as she noticed my gaze lingering on her. Because you look beautiful as you move. Smooth movements, clean lines. You move like a dancer, I told her, my words sincere as I admired her grace and elegance even in the simple act of getting dressed. I train for hours a day. Sword, dagger, or unarmed. A sword that sits idle grows rusty, she told me in a matter-of-fact way, her dedication to her training evident in her words. It's something you'll need to understand once we start our lessons, she added, a hint of anticipation in her voice as she looked forward to sharing her knowledge and skills with me. So I should add deadly to the list, I told her with a grin, acknowledging the seriousness of her training and the formidable skills she possessed. Yes, and you can stop ogling now, I am fully dressed, she told me, her tone playful yet firm as she teased me about my lingering gaze. I'll always have my memories, I replied with a mischievous grin, my tone laced with playful innuendo as I teased her about the lingering images in my mind. Pervert, she called me, her tone a playful accusation laced with affection. Guilty as charged, I responded with a playful wink, embracing the label she had bestowed upon me with good-natured amusement. You are incorrigible, she started, a fond smile gracing her lips. Thank you for today, dearest knight. Ithais could have been a very difficult thing, yet you made time pass like an eye blink. I look forward to our date, she told me, her words filled with gratitude and a hint of anticipation for the future. Lastly, she said, I'll wait for you at the entrance. As Ochako made her way downstairs, her footsteps echoing softly against the wooden floors, I took a moment to finish dressing, savoring the lingering warmth of our conversation. With each garment I donned, I felt a renewed sense of connection to her, a deeper understanding born from the intimacy we had shared. This court stuff. It's not making things easier, I muttered to myself, a frustrated sigh escaping my lips. I'll just have to work through it, I resolved, steeling myself for the challenges that lay ahead. As I was lost in my thoughts, I failed to notice Midnight standing by the door, her presence unexpected. Hey, Izuku. Do you have a minute? Midnight asked, her tone serious and somber, betraying the weight of whatever news or conversation she was about to broach. I guess asking you to knock is a waste of time, right? I asked her, my tone casual yet questioning. Yes, anyway, I need you to be careful. I doubt you understand much of what is going on, she cautioned. Look, I'm just doing homework with that Chaco. No big deal, I reassured her, trying to downplay the significance of the situation. You're doing ceremonial magic homework with the heiress to the court in exile. Don't assume I'm dumb, just because of what you see of me on TV, Izuku, or I will hurt you, she told me, her words sharp and pointed, her glowing blue eyes furrowing with intensity. Nothing happened, I told her plainly, my tone straightforward as I sought to reassure Midnight of the innocence of the situation. Yet, but Sarah will keep turning the screws, she enjoys this far too much, she told me, her voice tinged with resignation as she acknowledged the manipulative nature of Sarah's actions. You know Professor Sarah? I asked her, surprised by the mention of the professor's name and curious about Midnight's connection to her. I know of her, at least, she said with a hint of disdain, her distaste for Sarah evident in her tone. Anything good? I asked her. No, not really. She's a 95-year-old professional, lap dancing for inhuman monsters to stay young. That kind of thing affects a person. Think of her as a well-preserved maiden aunt, she said, her words dripping with sarcasm, as she painted a vividly unflattering picture of Professor Sarah. Damn, she's younger than I thought. But I guess it's expected, considering what little magic they may get from the bottom off the barrel elsewhere beings, like that defiler. Understand, she likes to play games. She could have grouped you together with that other evoker, and the two of you could have harmlessly screwed each other's brains out without anyone knowing. Or caring. She continued, her words blunt and matter-of-fact as she warned me about Professor Sarah's scheming tendencies. Doesn't sound so bad, when you put it like that, I said, acknowledging Midnight's point while still maintaining my preference for being grouped with that Chaco. Nonetheless, the alternative she presented didn't seem entirely undesirable either. Instead, she zeroes in on your interaction with Achako and decided to with your head. I'm sure pairing that thought and the other evoker was a nice bonus for her, she told me, her words laced with bitterness and disdain. What's the worst that can happen, anyway? I asked Midnight, my tone tinged with curiosity, and a hint of apprehension as I sought to gauge the potential consequences of Professor Sarah's meddling. Worse than she thinks. Way worse. But anyone making a living as a professional tease for inhuman magical fiends, using a portal that works most of the time, has a rather skewed risk assessment, she said with a cynical tone. Wait, most of the time. They're getting better, but summoning portals do occasionally fail. Usually halfway through the ritual. At which point, you're naked and alone in a basement with a crazed monster that can level a city block or two from elsewhere, Midnight explained, her tone grim as she highlighted the grave dangers associated with summoning rituals gone awry. I grimaced. Yeah, I could see that would suck. Neither Nana nor Achako plan to do any rituals though. And I pity the monster that will. Try to Nana, I told her, a touch of determination in my voice as I expressed my confidence in Nana's ability to defend herself against any potential threat. She is an evoker as well, after all. No, your risks are all associated with the course itself, Midnight told me. Like what I asked her, my tone tinged with uncertainty as I sought clarification on the specific risks associated with the course. Ewing the heir to the court, leaving her unfit for marriage to Fey Lord or court noble, and her father calling the wild hunt for you. Oh, and your evoker friend setting the thought on fire and ditching the corpse in elsewhere, she bluntly explained, listing the potential ramifications of our actions. Nana may not like Ashidasan, but I doubt she'd actually hurt her, I conveyed, placing my faith in Nana's ability to handle the situation with maturity and composure. The Chimeras had always had danger issues, and while Nana's grandfather added a lot of brute power to the line, it clearly came with neither common sense nor constraint. She shed light on the turbulent history of Nana's family. Anyway, Achako and I were both adults. If it's something we both want, why the hell is her father butting in? I told her. I myself am indignant about a father who'd control his daughter in such a manner. The court lives by different times and different rules. This up, or her in general, and you'll start a fight you cannot win. The wild hunt is a bad enemy for a god, never mind a fledgling evoker, she warned me solemnly, emphasizing the serious consequences that could arise from any misstep in our situation. There's something genuinely special about her, like an echo I can't shake. I refused to just give up and let her go back to some asshole noble that would never appreciate her, I told Nimiri earnestly, meeting her gaze with determination and conviction as I expressed my feelings about Achako, and my resolve to fight for our relationship. You're young and in lust. Go your evoker friend, it'll pass, she replied bluntly, dismissing my feelings and urging me to consider a more fleeting, physical connection instead. No, it won't, I asserted firmly, rejecting her suggestion and standing by my conviction that my feelings for Achako are genuine and enduring. Anyway, you're only half our problem. Your father could make a woman drop her soaked panties from 30 meters away with a single look. As you come into power, I worry how much of that will manifest, and how that will affect your lessons, she confided. That sounds like a useful skill to have. Sadly, I doubt I'm suddenly turning into some sort of god, I remarked wryly, acknowledging the absurdity. You're growing. Fast. Even just arriving last week, I can feel your power growing. Heck, I feel your power growing just within this conversation, she informed me, noting the rapid development of my abilities and the palpable increase in my power. So, is it working for you? I asked. Perhaps, but you're hardly the first demigod to try something like this on me. So far it is a long way from your father's glamour. Ochako, though, is young. Innocent. I worry what it will do to her, she told me. I would never do anything to hurt her. And Ochako would never do anything that went against her duty. Sadly, I said with a sigh, my gaze turning to the window as I pondered the complexities of our situation. Ochako is also smart enough to see all her father's games will do is stave off the collapse for another generation. Or two. The round table sits empty, and as council mages retire, nobody steps forward to fill their seats, she explained. Why is that? Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Which brings us to where the court is now. Weak men create hard times, Midnight Sensei intoned, her voice reflecting a deep understanding of the historical patterns of power and decline. How poetic. Ochako's duty to her father is clear. Support his plans to prop up alliances with his factitious nobles. Marry whatever faction leader screams the loudest. But her duty to the court, that is something different, she elucidated. In what way? The original companions of the Round Table weren't selected for their noble connections, Izuku. They were selected for bravery, strength, power. People like you or Nana could become in time, Midnight emphasized, drawing parallels between the historical significance of the Round Table and the potential for a new generation of heroes. She paused for a moment before continuing. It's an easy jump, especially if her heart urges her toward it, that her duty to the court would be better served by rebuilding the companions. Recruit battle mages, evokers, battle healers, knights, fill the round table again. It's certainly a compelling vision, I admitted, considering the possibilities. But how feasible is it, realistically speaking? Well, it could have worked. Would have worked if her father and mother had succeeded in their plans. Sure, the clans would have ed, but they wouldn't have had the might to oppose the united front presented by the two of them. Alongside a complete round table of companions, she stated matter-of-factly. What went wrong? I asked her. Since her death, Iraq has squandered the power of the throne in 1,000 petty squabbles and political maneuvers. Midnight explained with a heavy sigh. But Ochako might not see that children rarely perceive the true flaws of their parents. That evoker, the one who died with Ochako's mother. That's Nana's dad, wasn't it? That's why she hates the royals so much. I've been thinking about it since hearing the tale Ochako shared. Yeah, he was supposed to have been the first companion. Lancelot to Irek's Arthur. All those dreams scattered in a single busy afternoon, she recounted, her voice conveying the lost potential and shattered aspirations. Is it a coincidence that we're all gathering here 10 years later? I asked, turning to Midnight with a look of curiosity. If anyone possessed the insight to discern the deeper significance behind our reunion, it was her. There are no coincidences when dealing with powers, Izuku. Tread very carefully, and for the love of all the gods, keep her in your pants. Or at least away from her. It would help if a certain R-rated hero helped with my needs, I remarked with a casual shrug, flashing a smirk in Midnight's direction. Rascal. Anyway, I've said what I needed to say. I can't believe I'm here preaching about abstinence until marriage. Me, of all people. I need a stiff drink or 5 after this. See you, Midnight Sensei, I told her as I walked down the stairs, meeting up with Ochako at the entrance. After returning to the school premises, I went to the dorms alone because Ochako still had her enchanter classes. I have some free time, so I decided to explore the area. After changing my clothes at the dorm, I went back out to explore the area more. The sun's still shining in bright light. The sound of chattering people fills my ears. The smell of air, warm and earthy, fills my nose. As I walk, feeling the pavement underfoot, I have come across a coffee shop, just a few blocks away from the campus. Conveniently, a bookstore is located just a few buildings away. I guess I know what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the day, I thought. I make way to the bookshop, the entrance not too extraordinary. At least, it doesn't look that different from a regular bookstore. Some books displayed at the front are labeled from romance to drama books to a few bestsellers. The inside, I discovered, is anything but. As I step into the bookstore, a soft glow suffuses the air, lending the space an otherworldly charm. Sunlight filters through large windows, dappling the shelves with warm, inviting light. The shelves themselves seem to whisper secrets, each book holding a hint of mystery and wonder. The scent of old paper mingles with the faint aroma of cinnamon, adding a cozy warmth to the atmosphere. Dust motes dance lazily in the sunbeams, creating a gentle, mesmerizing spectacle. Perhaps there's a faint shimmer around the edges of some of the books, hinting at the possibility of something more than meets the eye. A particularly ancient tome might emit a subtle, pulsing energy, drawing you closer with its silent invitation to uncover its secrets. Welcome to Rambling Rascal, the premium bookstore on Mustafu. If you're looking for the esoteric, the exotic, the exciting, and extraordinary, look no further. A beautiful lady with a short dark pixie bob haircut with nut eyes says. She's slightly taller than the average Japanese woman, dressed in black casual cotton shirt with no sleeve. Intriguing, I say. Any good books you recommend to read while drinking coffee, I asked, briefly considering if I should flirt with her and dismissing the thought. It doesn't feel right. At least, not yet. We have many books in this store, Midoriya Izuku. Some more urgent than others, but this place always has what you need, she said, gesturing at the rows of books around her. Wait a minute. How did you know my name, I asked, while subtly looking around for any signs of danger. She doesn't feel dangerous, but you can't go wrong with being a little cautious. The books know all things, Midoriya Izuku, including your name. The name's Diana. Come to my humble shop, she says while extending her hand. No signs of spells being woven in either her words or the handshake, so I shook it. So, Diana, I take it you're an esoteric, I asked her. Esoterics are the mages with neither spark nor voices in their head, but are blessed with talent outside of it, like bending spoon with their mind, talking to animals, and other stuff. Talking to and hearing the books fits the bill. One other guy I knew has the ability to know any and all combinations of every lock, and he's thriving in this digital age. Indeed I am, Winterchild. What the books both know and share with me is limited, but I know enough, she said with a mysterious smile. And what do you know, I asked, ready to fight if it's come down to it. The last time someone called me Winterchild, it was a Y-Dog corpse. I know that if you don't buy a book now, it's going to cost you an opportunity, she told me, dodging the question. I'll play along for now. So, what book do you recommend, I asked her. She smiled and said, books are our wife, our mother, our sister, our daughter, our boss or secretary, our whore, our landlady, flatmate, and childhood best friend. Are you ready to find ecstasy, she said while gesturing me to follow. She's weird and that's something coming from me. Sure. What have you got, I asked her, ready to just get it over with. For you right now, she said this while walking through the aisles of books. Occasionally, she would pause and continue the search again. Ooh, yes, that's the book for you. There you go, she said, handing me a gray book. The cover shows a picture of the back of a naked woman, titled The Exquisite Art of Domination, by Victoria Ashcroft. Are you totally sure this is what I need right now, I asked, incredulously. My face must have been very strange right now. I mean, I like the ass dimples on the cover as much as the next guy, but calling it what I need seems overthought up. I already have someone I dom for and it's going well as far as I can observe. Oh, yes, very. Trust me, there's a wonderful opportunity just waiting for you to open its doors, she said this seriously. What's the harm, I thought. I guess. How much is it, I asked her, reaching for the bills in my wallet. Meanwhile, she's standing by the cash register. All books are equal in worth and equal in value. That would be 20,000 yen, she answered, which made my eyes bulge almost out of its socket. What the is this, made out of gold or something? That's just highway robbery, I told her. You came here for books you can find nowhere else. I simply charge accordingly, she answered. So I'm more paying for the exclusiveness of the shop rather than the book itself, is that it? I looked at her for several seconds, waiting for someone to jump out and say I'm featured in some kind of gag show that'll be shown in prime time. After nobody did, and I saw no jest in her expression, I sighed. Deeply. There you go, I said as I handed over 20,000 yen for a book. A single book. About something I'm already sure I'm good at. Good thing I have saved up money from my constant training and elsewhere. I'm not loaded or anything, but I have enough that it won't really be a problem. Always a pleasure. I know you will enjoy it, she told me as she took the cash and handed me the receipt. I walked out, feeling the breeze in my skin. I headed over to the coffee shop I stumbled upon a couple of minutes ago. Daily Grind. As I entered the establishment, I was greeted with a sight not unlike the regular cafe, except maybe for the ropes hanging from the ceiling, acting as support for some of the chairs in it. Looks homey and stylish. The scent of coffee and something earthy fills my nose as I walk to the barista. Her green hairs are made up of thorny vines. Her eyes dark, almost black, green. She's medium height for a Japanese teen. She's wearing a white toga dress. Insert control by High Rule here. Welcome to the Daily Grind. I'm Shizaki Ibara. How can I help you today, she asked with a slight gasp. Hi, I'm honestly more used to Starbucks coffee, but do you serve something delicious like that, I asked her, looking at the menu. It's familiar. If I didn't know better, I'd mistake it for a Starbucks branch. No, sir, she replied, her face looking at the ground while her eyes upturned to me. What do you mean? No, at least you can serve coffee. Yes, it says so on the menu you have. Oh, we serve excellent coffee, sir. But no to everything else, she replied. And which part is that? Well, I disagree that we're serving the same coffee, sir. We have standards. I would also strongly disagree that their coffee is delicious. She says this a little more indignant than before. Really, I thought it tasted quite nice. Surprised, I told her. This place used to be a Starbucks branch, and speaking as someone who completed the Starbucks Elite Barista course, it's pretty crap, she told me. I guess it explains the selection. Come on, Starbucks always tasted pretty nice, I told her. I have zero idea why I'm defending it to this degree. But it's the McDonald's of coffee, sir, she said in a flat tone. Anyway, how may I call you, sir, she asked. I'm Midoriya. Midoriya Izuku, I introduced myself, reaching out a hand and she shook it. Nice to meet you, Midoriya-san. Continuing on, having freed ourselves from our corporate overlords, we've embarked on a journey to partner with the best singly origin, fair trade certified, indigenous community supporting, radically conscious coffee beans, sourced from sustainable low-impact farms, she said. So in other words, you just buy them online, don't you? I told her. Pretty much, she admitted quickly. But please don't tell anyone or the boss will be really pissed off at me. Okay, let me have a coffee. What's available? I asked. Well, you've got a variety of beans. Some more acidic, some are more buttery. Then you get to pick the type and amount of drink. We only do espresso beverages here, so that's all. She answered. I want something bitter. Colombian beans would be good. No need for the milk. I told her. Okay, here you go. She handed me the coffee and I sat in a corner somewhere, her eyes following me throughout. I started reading the book while drinking my coffee. Thankfully, practically nobody's here, otherwise, even I'd be conscious of reading this in public. It's an interesting read, at least. I want to touch the parts of you no one else has touched. I want to own the piece of you that has yet to be discovered. So stop resisting. Let go. Let it happen. While I'm reading this, I can't help but notice the barista, Shizaki, is looking surreptitiously at me. When I tried to meet her eyes, she looked away immediately. I went back to my reading. I, with a deeper instinct, choose a man who compels my strength, who makes enormous demands on me, who does not doubt my courage or my toughness, who does not believe me naive nor innocent, who has the courage to treat me like a woman. Shizaki is now struggling to conceal her interest in the book. She walks up to me and says, "Shows the coffee. Fantastic. You weren't kidding when you said you serve great coffee here," I answered. Okay, well, yeah, thanks, she mumbles, her eyes darting everywhere. Was that really what you wanted to ask about? I asked with a knowing smile. I won't miss the fact that she's trying too hard not to look at the book I'm reading. Or yes, I guess, she told me. Unable to resist the temptation, her eyes now stuck to the book like glue. You've been eyeing the book I'm reading, haven't you? I asked, which made her silent. Her blush was pronounced on her face. Her eyes were dilated and misty. Her breath rate slightly increased. Does it excite you? I asked. I've had this dream for years. Of being dominated. There's this man in my dream, tall and dark, and intense, she explained. Like me? I asked. Yais, she said. And in these dreams, what do you call me? I asked her, which she only returned silence, looking at me. I didn't hear you, Shizaki, I asked again, this time in a firm, stern tone. My lord. And in my dreams, I call you my lord, she answered, looking to the floor. This thighs can't be real. The perfect black rose, it's not a thing. You are not really my lord. Right? She asked, uncertain of what it all meant. We'll see. You may go, Ibara. Yes, I'll see you later. Midoriya-san, she said, stumbling on her words as she made her way to the counter again. I finished my drink and walked out of the store, with a goal in mind. A perfect black rose. I think I know just where to find them, I thought as I made my way to a portal to elsewhere in the basement of the Crowley. The sun shines, and its yellow-orange glow paints the horizon as it readies to set, marking the time my kindred thrives, unburdened by the fear of turning into ash. The smell of caramel apples fills my nose, as I take a deep breath. I couldn't be faulted for saying it's just an ordinary day, if not for the tentacle monster running after me. I ran as fast as my tiny feet could carry me. Tiny whatever, it's not the time to worry about that. I ran into the forest, around tree after tree, hoping to lose the monster. At the same time, the landscape changes every step I take. I hear it approaching closer every second, slithering through the trees, taking the same route I did. My lungs feel like it's burning, but I know I can't stop because the moment that I do, it'll be over. I don't know what's gonna happen, but Mommy was very particular about not getting caught by those things. While running, I see a bright flash of light, nearly blinding me. I made my way to it, slowly realizing that it was a portal opening to the mundane world. I went through it, thinking it was the only way to escape the monstrosity running after me. My expectation of a bright place, considering that previous flash of light, was flipped over its head when the moment I stepped into it, I was greeted by darkness. The place seems to be inside a large mansion, not unlike the place I grew up in. Thankfully, being a half-vampire allowed me to see clearly, despite the obvious lack of light. And though it isn't as sharp as I'd like to be for some reason, echolocation more than makes up for it. I looked back at where the portal was but found nothing. Strange. Also, everything seems so big. My instinct is telling me that everything is wrong, as if ants crawling under my skin. Yet for some reason, my body moved on its own. Room after room, I explored, and each time I saw that nobody was there. It was a loop of me opening a place and finding nobody there until I came across what seemed to be a dressing room. Fancy. I looked around and was surprised by what I saw in the mirror. I've been thinking all this time that everything looked so big and tall. But that isn't it. I'm simply tiny. Cute, but what the hell happened? Did I piss off a sorceress and got cursed or something? My thoughts exclaimed in panic as I look at my facial features and see it not different from before I started my whole angsty crusade. I tried to shapeshift to my actual height, but to no avail. I tried turning into various forms, other people, a mist, a bat, a rat, and even a wolf, but none of them worked. Again, weird. Being stuck in this form is far from ideal. Not only are my powers malfunctioning, but I highly doubt my plan to be with Izuku would ever happen if I'm stuck like this ARGH once I find the one who did this to me, I swear. PSSHTT boom. My thoughts were interrupted when I heard a loud noise coming from somewhere inside the building. The explosion even shook it. I started following the sound of explosions, screaming, and the sound of what seemed to be bodies dropping to the ground. Thud ARGGGHHH. I heard the sound of someone screaming in agony. The sound pierced through the air. I continued following it until I stopped in front of a large double-sided door. And it's not just large because of my current size, though it made it seem far more gigantic than it already is. If I have to guess, it's tall enough to fit several semi-trucks on top of each other, with room to spare. As I stood before it, the screams and explosions suddenly stopped. For a split moment, I found myself hesitating, before steeling myself to open the door. What greeted me was a stuff of nightmare. Bodies are clumsily strewed about, covering them from head to toe. A man who looked like he's in his 30s with limbs elongated and twisted into unnatural shapes, resembling gnarled branches of some sinister tree. Fingers elongated into razor-sharp claws, while joints bent in directions that defied the laws of anatomy, rendering them a grotesque mockery of the human form. A woman, flesh dissolved into a putrid sludge, oozing and dripping from her bones like melted wax. Limbs sagged and melted away as if consumed by some unseen acid, leaving behind a puddle of bubbling, writhing flesh where a person once stood. Another woman with golden hair has her intestines wrapped around her neck, as she hangs from the chandelier. Wet sounds continue to be heard as the tension of her gut continues to echo in the room as her body continues to swing back and forth. Back and forth. The others aren't that much better. Each and every one of them was mangled, defiled, and eviscerated. I know for a fact that this sight isn't the worst I've seen, but for some reason, I found my stomach turning before it. Whatever food was still in there threatening to burst out of my mouth. My sight blurred for some reason. Before I realized it, tears gathered in my eyes while looking at the woman hanging from the chandelier before a familiar voice I hadn't heard in a while came out of my mouth. "Mommy, mommy," I shouted, and my body moved on its own to get closer to the corpse. But before I was able to do that, I felt sharp pain as a blade went through the back of my neck to my. "Looks like you missed one, sweetheart. Don't worry, I took care of it for you. Can't have any loose ends lying around. Can we consider it my little contribution to our shared goal of thoroughness?" I heard a voice belonging to a man say, before feeling the blade get pulled out of me. He stood there, a grotesque silhouette against the dim light, his massive form casting a looming shadow over me. His pudgy fingers gripped the weapon tightly. I remember, I thought as I hit the floor with a dull thud and saw my own spreading across the floor. It took such a long time to put two and two together, but it is that day, isn't it? Well, aren't you just full of surprises? Didn't realize he hired a janitor instead. "Next time, I'll make sure to leave a mop and bucket for you," I heard a woman's voice answer, her lithe figure contrasting the man's bloated form. Though I wasn't able to see either of them with my eyes. I feel too weak to even turn my head to the source of the voice. "It's cold, mommy," was the last thing that I said before everything turned black. A new scenery was unveiled in my eyes. I was in a dark, damp room. The putrid smell of feces and urine, mixed with decaying bodies, surrounding the area attacks my nose. I looked at the pathetic figure before me and approached it. My footsteps reverberated throughout the room. See. In front of me is a man tied up to an armchair, disrobed except for his underwear. I noticed my limbs are longer than just before, but not a significant difference. Harp in hand, I spoke. "Vampire extermination. Dangarnon, tell me everything you know," I demanded from the man, my pristine voice making being taken seriously an uphill battle. "As formidable as your presence may be, little Endeling," he said with sarcasm dripping from his words, "I've faced far darker shadows than you while comfortably seated. They always start like this, but they'll start singing in a few hours." I looked at Harp before stabbing it to his crotch, the legendary blade having no trouble going through Normie's flesh. I made sure to do it in a way that would hurt but wouldn't bleed him to death. At least, not yet. A curdling scream echoed in this basement. I'm not one to waste time, so I had my finger just slightly digging in his shoulder. While drawing, I traced a trail going from his shoulder down to his arm, his hand, and finally his fingertips. I looked him in the eye with a smile on my face as I used two fingers to grip his fingernails. His face turned from a healthy shade of ivory to very pale white, as if all drained from his face. Cold sweat appeared on it as he realized what I was about to do. With a slight tug on his nail, I gave him a taste of it, which earned another scream. "Oh yes, I'm going to take my time with this newly minted eunuch. I don't know what you want, but I swear I have nothing to do with it," he said, which delights me because I get to play even more. I started pulling even more until he started bleeding, the rest of his nails being forcefully pulled just enough to maximize the agony. After pulling it out completely, I poured salt over the wound. "Arghing, I didn't know anything about it," he said as his eyes glared at me. "I wanted to claw them out, but I'm going to need him to keep them in case I'm feeling a little merciful after all of this. On second thought, I just need one of them," so I plucked his left eye out. He started screaming again, which is made worse because of the sound profile of this place, so I just slapped him hard with my free hand to make him shut up. You'd know, don't try to bullshit me. I did my own investigation so I can cross-check whatever stupid lies you try to spin. I paused for a moment before continuing. Tell me. Your son, Takeshi, have you seen him lately? I heard he's doing good in his studies, always bringing back star marks from school. I told him, which made him pale even more. Please, my kid has nothing to do with this. Don't involve him, he pleaded, tears flowing out of his eyes. The left side must sting. I dunno. His dad's such a liar, I might just find the idea of tossing him to a nearby defiler appealing. I said this with the sweetest voice I could. Or maybe I'll sell him to the unseelie phase. I heard leather furniture is quite the demand there these days. All right, I'll tell you everything you want to know, but please don't harm my little boy, he begged. His early defiant attitude is gone. Boring, fine. But don't you dare try to pull a fast one over me, or your son will wish I'd be as merciful to him as I did with your fellow hunters, I said as I gestured at the dead bodies around him. Thankfully, I didn't have to chop up his family in front of him and make them watch as I fed him the parts as I did with the last guy. His and his family's faces as I shoved their youngest daughter's face skin down his throat as just chefs. I'll just charm this one to burn down his house. What I wouldn't harm his kid. He would. See, I am a woman of my word. This continued for a while before I slowly opened my eyes. The morning sun shines through the window close to my bed as a maid opens the curtains. If I'm a full vampire, that would have burned the hell out of me. The maid, with short green fluffy hair and green eyes, turned to me with a smile. Ajo-sama, it is time to wake. I have prepared your garments for today's activity, she said as she brought a gold and blue dress, but not caring about that. I only opened my phone to look at the date today. After confirming it, I breathed a deep sigh and said, "Leave me alone. I'm not doing anything today." Ajo-sama, the maid, not used to me treating her coldly, got confused by my action. "Leave me alone," I shouted, this time, as I pulled my blanket over my head, wanting to go back to sleep. Wanting for this day to be over. I'm not in the mood to play pretend to some perfect girl in front of a brainwashed maid and a spoilt daughter to some brainwashed rich couple. I only did this to have an alibi in case I ever needed it and because it's interesting. Mostly the latter. But I can't be bothered. Not today, at least. I can still see the maid through my blanket, staring at me, like she's unsure of what to do before nodding, and walking out of the room. I tried going back to sleep. Not only to skip the day, no. I wanted to relive the dream, if possible. Even considering how horrifying it is, how much I want to throw up at being reminded of that memory, and what they did to my people, it's still a way for me to see them once again. The only way, as far as I'm concerned, and the waking world won't be able to give me that. It took me a few hours of trying before finally giving up. Fine, I'll be productive or some shit. I went and got Harp and walked all over town, trying to find what to do. I didn't even bother concealing my sword because I could just say I'm cosplaying so long as it stays sheathed. Works for these humans all the time. I walked wherever my feet carried me without much though of what was around me. That is until a body suddenly fell in front of me. In an instant, I realized that the figure both felt and smelled wrong, a combination of sickeningly sweet, foul, and acidic. A necromancer's flesh puppet. It's not moving though, so I wonder what happened. I looked above and thought it might give answers if I go to the roof. I transformed to my bat form and flew to the roof. I saw what appeared to be a sniper's kit, complete with a rifle, tripod, and everything. I looked at the scope. Is that what it's called, and see where they're aiming at? I saw a short woman with a thin build, green hair styled in a ponytail, wearing a blouse as she was watching the TV. Are they trying to assassinate her or something, I thought, but immediately recognized who she was. It's Izukun's mom. I should introduce myself or something. Admittedly, I'm being a little selfish right now, but if someone attacks her, I'll be able to defend her. Then Izukun's gonna take me to his bed as a reward, ditching the werewolf. Just imagining it is making me wet. I wonder how the flesh puppet died though. Well, it's already dead, sure, but still. I don't see anyone here. It didn't look like there was a fight either. Not even a trace of magic. Oh well. I made my way through the busy streets, fixing my hair meanwhile. Once I reached the door for Izukun's apartment, I knocked on it. I'm so glad I decided to wear tights today, otherwise the tattoo I got would show. His perplexed face as he saw it is so wonderful, steady and firm. You can do this, Hemi. I thought this as the door in front of me started to open. Hello, dear. How may I help you? She asked with a smile on her face. Hi, Auntie. My name's Toga Himiko. I'm a friend of Izukun. He told me all about you. We haven't seen each other for a while, so I'm thinking of surprising him with a visit. Is he here? I asked. Of course, I know he isn't. He's in UA, after all. Oh, has he? Now great timing. Come on in. Well, he's not here yet, but I have a feeling he's going to visit us soon. Mother's intuition and all that, she said while gesturing for me to come in. His apartment's not that big. Not small, it certainly is enough for a mother and son living together. But it's not a place you'd expect to find a demigod being raised in. Then again, Perseus didn't get raised in a castle either, so who am I to judge? She led me to the living room, which has 2 sofas and a small TV. Here you go, Tagachin, she told me as she put a small cup of tea in front of me. Such a gracious host. We talked for a while about anything and everything. From what I can tell, she doesn't seem to be aware of magic and elsewhere, so I didn't bring up those topics. Instead, I diverted the conversation to let me know more about Izuku, which wasn't all that hard to know. She loved talking about him. I learned a lot, from his childhood to what he was doing recently. Of course, I know what he was up to these days, but it was nice to know about him from before we met. The conversation continues until the sound of the doorbell rings in the house. This smell. He's here. Unfortunately, the wolf's here too. Berg. Oh, that must be Izuku. I'll go get it, Andy said before going to the door. I can hear the sea of the door being unlocked before a creak, opening it. Izuku. Itsukasen. Come in. Come in. She ushered them to the living room, where I waited. The wolf pointedly walked in front of Izuku, as if covering him, as she stared at me. Likely did not want to cause a ruckus because of his mom. I don't care about the pet, so I ignored her. Surprise, I told him as I jumped into a hug at him. He and his mom looked at me with surprise, but he caught me all the same. The pet was almost glaring at me, which made me smile. I just noticed it from before, but did he just become more powerful, his sparks looking weird? It grew in size and intensity, and 8 small orbs of different colors orbited around it. It's been a while, Tagessen, right, he said, which almost made me pause. Since when did he learn my name? He feels even more mysterious the more I learn about him. Come on. I already told you to call me Himi, I said while fluttering my eyelashes at him. All right, then. Himi, he said, which made my face turn red. I wasn't expecting it to have this kind of effect on me. You 3 must have things to catch up on, right? I'll just go make some dinner. Would you be staying with us for a meal? Honey, Auntie asked me. Sure, I will, I immediately replied. This is so perfect. As if I'm already a wife having a meal with my handsome husband and my kind mother-in-law. The pet can get lost for all I care though. After Auntie's distracted with cooking, the pet is now even growling at me and asked, "What are you doing here?" Checking up on my future mother-in-law, I plainly said. What about you? Shouldn't you be traveling the world or something, going through your midlife crisis? Enough. The 2 of you will stop this, Izuku said before turning to me. Seriously, what are you doing here? I was walking around town when a necromancer fell dead in front of me. I investigated the roof and found a rifle aimed at this house. Figured I'll protect her in case the corpse has backups. I told him. I was tempted to earn extra brownie points by saying I was the one who took out the necro, but that wouldn't be wise. Izuku's expression is complicated, mixed with worry and fear for his mother. Not like I don't get it, especially after that dream I had. I'll reach through my connections to have this area patrolled more frequently, the pet says before hugging Izuku. She'll be safe. I'll make sure of that, she continued. Yeah. All right, thank you, Itsuka, he said to her, which was frustrating me. And you too, Himi. Thanks for checking up on Mom, he told me. I couldn't help but sport a horny grin at him. You're welcome. I'd be happy to have if you reward me with a good ing, I told him. Subtlety, what's that? The only thing that'll get is someone else stealing the march on you. Perhaps not somewhere my mom couldn't hear, he said with a brow raised. At least it means he's not against the idea. The pet's glaring at me, it's hilarious. I'm looking forward to it, I told him, which earned a chuckle from him. Damn, even the way he did it is hot. The rest of the day is filled with little conversations. It seems he wants to make sure I won't hurt the wolf, so I promise not to harm her so long as she won't harm me first. This time, it's not some wordplay. It'd destroy my relationship with him, after all. Content with that, Andy finished preparing the food. Izuku helped set up the table. The pet and I tried to offer help but were shot down by Auntie because we were supposed to be guests. After dinner, I made my way back home, only for Izuku to follow after me. I can walk in the dark, you know, I told him, a bit of a tease in my tone. I know. I'm not here for that, he told me, which made me curious. Oh, I'd like to thank you for helping during USJ, he said. Truthfully, I didn't think much of it. The beast's already on its last leg after he bombarded it with poison. Evoker poison magic is no joke. I simply made sure that the harm done to him was kept to a minimum. It's okay. I'll just be expecting our first night to be super hot now as a reward for 2 things, I told him. He walked up to me, of course. You'll be dripping semen from your holes for a month after I'm done with you, he whispered to my ears before nibbling and blowing at it. A jolt ran down my whole body. Did I just from that? Well, that's just a taste for when I'll be giving you the reward, he said this as he walked back to his house. I can't escape the stupid grin from escaping my face. I walked back to the mansion, giddy at what happened. Ajo-sama. Welcome back, the maid greeted me. Oh, Saya, right, good evening. I'm retiring for the night. Do not disturb me. All right, I announced to her before going straight to my room. My name's Elsie, though I heard the dejected maid mutter. Who cares, I'm fing the bean tonight. Thursday, evoker class. Also, early morning. I ready for class, admittedly a little excited at the prospect of gaining more knowledge as an evoker. On top of that, I have a promise with Achako to start teaching me the way of the sword after that. I should have went to the daily grind before going to class, I thought, but my pride didn't let me, considering I have yet to find a perfect black rose. The way to the school is how it's always been. At least the way it's always been the past week. There are still no regular classes since the faculty are still very skeptical of what happened to USJ. On the way to class, I bumped into Nana, who was wearing a rather casual jumpsuit. I'd comment more on it, but considering I didn't bother putting on more effort than a black shirt, and dark pants. I kept it to myself. "Heya, Izuku," she called out to me while waving. Her tone was very lively. "You wouldn't believe it's 7 a.m. Yo, Nana. Let's head together," I told her. I'm tempted to ask her what happened to the ceremonial magic homework with Mina, but considering how the latter came back to the dorms really pissed off and locked herself inside her room, I'd rather not open that can of worms now. There will be time for that later. "Yeah, let's head," she said. On the way to the class, we run into Eindridi, who called out to us. "Nana, Izuku, good to see the two of you. My office is a bit of a mess at the moment, and this lecture theater is free. So let's just do the lecture here," Eindridi said to both of us as he guided us inside. Unlike the ceremonial magic's DGN1, this place is well lit. No ominous magic circle that summons disgusting creatures, nor is it surrounded by booze. Overall, I wouldn't blame anyone thinking it's just an ordinary lecture hall. "Do I want to know what made the mess?" I asked while finding a spot to sit, curious what the evoker teacher's up to. "Well, whatever it was, it's not doing that again." "How goes your studies?" he asked, avoiding the question. "Pretty okay. I feel I'm getting stronger," I answered. "I feel like I'm getting more and more powerful, especially after USJ. It doesn't seem to be because of OFA or anything, apparently. My physical abilities, from running speed to lifting strength, have grown to almost double because of the quirk, but it didn't affect my magical side. At the very least, none that I could tell." "Yes, indeed. And it's an interesting growth curve." He said this in a way that made me a little uncomfortable. Particularly how he looks at me's creeping me out. "In what way?" I asked, trying to shake off the feeling. "Look at Nana here," he said, gesturing at her. "Gladly," I answered, eyeing the attractive older evoker as if to commit all her curves to my memory. "He didn't mean ogle me tits, ya perf." "Watch my aura," Nana said, though both her tone and her wide smile makes me think she's liking it way more than she lets on. "We all want some happiness in life." "Notice the power of her aura," Eindridi said, his tone serious. "No, sorry. I'm totally blind to this stuff," I answered truthfully. "My powers have grown, but for some reason, in exchange, my senses are getting duller. Strange. No matter. Nana is about where you'd expect an evoker of her line to be. Her strength has grown steadily since the spark awoke at 13 or 14, and will keep growing for decades still," he said. "Okay, and mine. Not as strong. Yet. But from last week to now, I'm already seeing significant growth. And it's neither linear nor normal." "Okay, so in time I'll probably catch up." "Seems fair. I haven't been using my magic as often nor as long as her." "Never mind having the guidance she is growing up," I said. But it seemed that he's not yet convinced. "Which shouldn't be possible," he started. "For many reasons. Nana's line is extremely potent. You shouldn't be able to catch up with her. Certainly not in weeks. So, what's causing it?" "Not sure. It's what I was looking into earlier. Possibly, it's connected to you and your abnormal growth. Or something else." He paused before dropping the subject. "Now, I'm supposed to teach you a thing or two about fighting. Let me tell you a story from the past, focused on how shock troops, like evokers, can be used as the speak of a combined force," he continued. "Cool. Eindridi is a surprisingly good teacher. His voice has an almost hypnotic quality, making the battles he describes come alive like something out of an ancient saga. Both Nana and I are sucked into the tale. On top of that, I felt something inside me respond. A half-forgotten fragment or memory, burning brightly into my soul. I feel myself growing." It was seen that as the fighting lessened he stood, still alive. But with Eric went to the stern of the ship in search of the king, a light disappeared, the king himself was gone. "Wait, that can't be how the story ends. The heroic king dies, then magically disappears," I said, confused by such a tale. "If you're going to recite an epic, give me a happy ending. Otherwise, it's such a waste." "Yes, not every story has a happy ending. Few enough evoker stories do, truth be told. And yet his deeds echo down through the ages," he rationalizes. "Like Nana's dad, you mean. A good man. Too good to be wasted on a wreck's broken castle and strayed sheep," he says with a little melancholic tone. "But to each is given the power to finish his own story, and I don't think he would have wanted it differently, in the end." "I guess," I muttered, still a little unconvinced at the back of my mind. "How you choose your end shows the things you valued through your life, Izuku. Da taught me that. And in the end, standing between civilians and a dragon was how he would have wanted to go," she said with a smile. It seems she's not kidding when she says she's over it. "Well, let's try to avoid that happening to us anytime soon," I said. I ain't fighting no dragons for a good decade or two," she replied with a laugh. "Is that all for the class, Eindridi?" "Indeed. I've got some stuff to do off campus. I'll see you next week. Oh, before I forget, here's some courseware for you too," he said, as he handed out a few pages of paper before walking out of the room. "That guy moves at his own pace, huh? Some of me cousins are in town. I'm meeting them up to get drunk with them. "Wanna join us?" Nana invited me. "I'd like to join, but I already have prior arrangements." "Not today. I still have some stuff to do," I said. Her brow raised at that. "Your loss. See you at the gym." After saying goodbyes to Nana, I went straight back to the dorms to change clothes. I donned my hero costume, the militaristic camo uniform. In truth, I've been using this design since I started training in elsewhere when I'm 12, so it's still awkward for me to call this my hero costume. Should I ask for a replacement? After concluding that I won't because it's too much of a pain, I made my way to the grounds for the sword lessons with Ochako. Welcome back, my knight, she started but immediately reeled when she saw me. Ugh, I'm not sure which outfit I like less on you. The tacky black shirt and pants you wore earlier today or this one, she said while shaking her head, her right hand across her face before letting out a loud sigh. Oh well, I take it you're ready for your sword lessons, Ochako asked. Did she just casually roast my sense of fashion and dropped it like nothing? Why yeah, it may come in handy, I answered to her, my hand rubbing the back of my head. And so this time, I'll be the teacher and you the student, she said with a giddy smile. Looks like she loves the idea. How proficient are you with it, Ochako, I asked her. It'll be a good idea to know what I'm measuring against. Very, she said without hesitation, which made me gulp unconsciously. I was trained by Matthew Burke, the swordmaster of the court. Among gods and mortals he had few equals and no superiors, she said. That guy must be very impressive. Must be nice being taught by someone that skilled. Wait, he left the court a few months ago. To where, I do not know, though I sometimes hear he's been spotted on the paths, living in the chaos as one of the solitary fae, she said with a sad expression. Why, I asked. Why does he travel the paths? I assume he is looking for something. Perhaps a worthy challenger. Or perhaps a death with purpose, she explained while grabbing a few wooden swords on the ground. Or are you asking why he left, she asked. Yeah, that. Matthew, once a loyal vassal to my mother, faithfully accompanied her when she departed the Sealy court for the court in exile. However, after her passing, a palpable shift occurred within him. He grew increasingly withdrawn, harboring a deep disdain for the political machinations and perceived moral decay festering within the court's corridors. On the day of my 18th birthday, he solemnly presented me with his second devious sword, symbolizing his decision to depart from the court. Bidding farewell to its tumultuous world of intrigue and power struggles, she recounted, her voice tinged with melancholy. You sound like you missed him. He was a fey noble, Izuku. Not a power, but a noble born, and with their standoffish nature. But after Mom died, he was likely more of a parent to me than my own father, she confided. Sounds like he was important to you. I admired him, sought to emulate him. It must have been hilarious to watch, a gangling 9-year-old girl, trying to emulate the lazy grace of a fey master swordsman. She continued, her voice bathed in nostalgia and looking at the field, as if imagining her younger self, practicing the sword. I can see what that graced you into. You are too kind, all I have is a faint echo, she said with a smile on her face. It seemed I at least was able to cheer her up, even a little bit. But be that as it may, it will have to suffice to teach you the sword. Here, take this, she handed me a wooden training sword. Try to swing it. I try the best impression of a swordsman I can do. I expected it to be clumsy, yet I effortlessly shift. The sword carved a smooth line through the air as I slide into the first guard. I stand with my right feet forward, both knees bent with weight on the S of my feet. The wooden sword gripped in a handshake grip as it's pointed to the front. Bore something whispered. Where did you learn how to do that? My knight, Ochako asked, surprise evident in her voice. I don't know, I answered. My body simply moved on its own, as if reaching into a memory. Faint, but it's there. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought you have been training for months now based on how smooth you moved. Not at the level of an average noble of Camelot, sure, but certainly way better than I expected, she said, her brows furrowed as she evaluated me. I'm not sure if I should be happy with that. No worries, Sir Knight. I'll make sure you shall be formidable with the sword before the sport festival, she said. She's unexpectedly fired up about this. Rather, I'm not sure if I'll be using a sword during the sports fest. It feels unfair for my fellow students. She started walking to my side and continued. First off, let us fix the easy ones in your form. Start with not gripping the handle too much. The muscles will tighten and your hand will slow down. Not to mention, you will drain your stamina much faster. Hold the sword like a child's hand, soft enough that you do not hurt it, firm enough that it will not get away. I tried what she said and find it makes sense. I guess it's the same for a punch. Nice and loose. Steer with the thumb and pointing finger of your topmost hand. Soft and easy. Yeah, makes sense. I can feel the balance better. By the way, how close to a normal sword is this in weight? I asked Ochako, but she seems distracted by something, so I repeated my question after she didn't answer. Ochako, would a sword of steel be a lot heavier? Oh no. No, a good sword should be similar to this oaken wand. Swords are lighter than you would think, despite being steel, she finally answered after snapping out of it. Okay, I think I've gotten the hang of it. What's next? We will start with the forms, the basic stances, and movements. Repeat the guard you did a moment ago. It's called the boar stance. She started diving into the lesson. Hours are spent practicing. Boar to gate, gate to guard. S in blocks. Every time I settle into a new stance, her hands gently correct my center of gravity, tug at an arm, and correct foot placement. Drive the sword with your hips and shoulders. Just like with an unarmed strike, power comes from speed, and speed comes from large muscles moving a short way rather than small muscles being forcibly moved a long way. Something half-forgotten stirred inside my soul, much more potent each minute. Every move I make becoming surer. I feel as if I've done this before. Countless times, even. As if I'm born for this. I think we are done. You are starting to waver, and I worry I am giving you too many things to remember, she said before smiling. But still, you are fascinating, my knight. You picked up the sword and became a novice in no time. In the span of few hours, you've grown to the level not unlike a fully-fledged swordsman. She gives a confused look. It seems every time I see you, I find myself asking who you are, she said before shaking her head and turning around and saying, let us make this a regular thing, my knight. It is intriguing how much you'll grow. Yeah, okay, let's. By the way, Achako, would you like to go out tomorrow with me, I asked. Our last date got postponed because of the damn USJ incident, so I'm inviting her to make sure we'll get to go together, this time. At this question, she perked up. She slowly walked to me, her body's leaning into my direction and she's looking at me with upturned eyes. Sure, my knight. Would you like to meet up somewhere? Then she asked. Let's meet up at the train station. I have somewhere in mind that I'm sure you'll love, I told her. I am looking forward to that, Izuku, she said, her cheeks much redder than usual as she walked back to the dorms. Her steps have a bubbly skip to them. I can't help but think how adorable she is. As for me, I have a work at the Crowley's, so I walked over to the direction of the gates.